What's up, lazy readers? Before I start the video, why do I have another channel and for what purpose? I will only post one part of any fanfic and no part 2 as the name suggests. Anyways, don't forget to like and sub for a warm glass of milk. Now enough of my rambling, let's move on to our what if. Chapter 1. Prologue. Play Sanctuary, ending. It was over. The darkness didn't prevail and the light was not expired. The second Keyblade War was over and the 7 Guardians of Light were now at the Destiny Islands, enjoying the peace that had been kept thanks to them. Well, 6 of them were. After the final battle, one of the Guardians could not come back, forever gone, but never forgotten. His name was Sora. You yourself will vanish from this world. And without your powers, you can't return to the world you came from. Chirithy had warned Sora. It's a risk I'm willing to take. Sora had responded. It wasn't a risk. It was a certainty. After everything Sora had gone through, who would have thought that his own kind spirit would be what ends his story in his world? However, not all hope was lost for the young Keyblade wielder. Through his battles, struggles, and hardships, he had always powered through in the end, due to him wanting to protect and save his friends. From that kindness and how he has touched the hearts of so many, their light had shielded him and gave him just enough power for one more thing. That thing was another chance to do what he did best, protect the light wherever he went from the shadows that had been cast by it. However, this would be Sora's toughest challenge yet. All this power had helped him reach this new place. It had left as soon as he had arrived, with only his kingdom key and the little amount of power he had left, he had set off, not knowing what this new world has to offer. Until he had encountered a small boy with green hair and a skinny blonde guy who was riding something with wheels. Silence. The green-haired boy had stumbled and fallen down, struggling to get back up. And the blonde guy noticed this. Hey kid, look alive now. The man said. You've got 3 months left. What, are you gonna give up after all this work? Gonna flush it all down the toilet and take it easy? The boy was trying to get up but seemed stuck, like his body was physically unable to continue, and the man noticed this. You're overworked. He stated, looking slightly annoyed, as he continued. The aim to pass American Dream Plan was created with your body in mind. It was fine-tuned to ensure that your progress was swift but manageable, which means you haven't been sticking to it. The boy was still trying to get up as the man continued speaking to him. You're overdoing things. That's gonna have the opposite effect of what we want. I have to work harder. The boy said. Or I won't stand a chance against the other applicants. As he said this, the man was surprised. The kid was starting to get himself back up as he continued speaking. Play Boku no Hero Academia asked you can be a hero. I don't just want an UA, I want to excel. He said, slowly rising his face off the ground. I want to be like you. I want to be the greatest hero in the world, so I'll keep on trying until I've got what it takes to do that. The man was taken aback by this statement and then somehow buffed up and grabbed the boy by the collar of his shirt. Speaking in a very heroic and inspiring tone of voice. That fighting spirit is what I like about you, fanboy. It serves you well. The now buff man had complimented. I do get your concerns. That said, now is not the time to go and rush progress. He slung the boy over his shoulder, grabbed the heavy object and started walking with him, continuing what he was saying. Fear not. I can get you back on track. Leave it to this old man to adjust your plans. You're not an old man, All Might. The fanboy had said. Before the now named All Might had let out a laugh. Play Boku no Hero Academia asked among Kasei. Wow. An unfamiliar voice had spoken to them. The man had turned and saw Sora running up to him. That was so cool. He said. How'd you do that, sir? You were so skinny, but then you suddenly got really big and buff looking. All Might and the boy had both had a look on their face that screamed oh crap, but All Might had managed to play it cool. Hahaha. You must have been seeing things, young man. All Might had said. Clearly because you're probably excited to see me. What? Sora said. I was pretty sure that I saw you get bigger thaw. He was cut off when a swarm of small bug-looking creatures in pitch black had surrounded the three. Play KH 1.5 HD Remix asked Squirming Evil. Sora had summoned his Keyblade and got ready for a fight. Even after that battle, the Heartless are still around. Heartless? All Might questioned while throwing the heavy object at one of the Heartless and getting ready for a fight. Monsters that go after people's hearts. Sora had explained, swinging his Keyblade at the 3 that had pounced towards him. Get the guy on your shoulder out of here while I take them. You seem to not know who I am, young man. All Might said, winding his fist back and punching in front of him, making a shockwave that had blown back the Heartless in front of him. You're talking to the symbol of peace. He continued, dashing towards and completely taking down another group of Heartless in front of him, while also keeping the boy over his shoulder. After taking out another group of heartless, Sora had noticed some of them attempting to attack All Might's back and rushed towards him. However, when he was about halfway there, he saw All Might toss the boy in the air and then spread his arms. Oklahoma. He stared. As Sora was almost there, he ended up seeing All Might do something amazing. Smash. All Might yelled out as he started spinning his entire body at incredible speed, blowing away all the heartless in the area, then catching the boy he tossed in the air. Play KH3 Ost Monstropolis Office Field. Sora was barely able to withstand the force of that attack, but when the dust settled, he saw All Might and the boy completely unscathed in a manner of speaking. Sora had stars in his eyes and immediately ran towards and adored the man. Wow. You're so cool. Are you a hero here? He asked, getting a very confused look in response from both of them. Wait. The boy started. You don't know All Might. The #1 hero, symbol of peace, and the one who saved over 100 people with a smile when he first debuted. He got a blank and confused look from Sora. Are you not from this world? Wait, you know about the other worlds. Sora said, then almost immediately covering his mouth, but it was too late, as he saw both All Might and the boy look insanely confused at what Sora had just said. What did you just say, young man? All Might had stuttered to ask. Sora couldn't speak clearly, trying to come up with something he could say to cover for what he just spilled, but was coming up with nothing. Other worlds. The kid said just before hitting the ground as All Might had suddenly turned back into the skinny guy he was before. Ow. Ha. I knew it. Sora said, trying to change the subject. I knew I saw you really skinny before. Hey guys. I'm back. After a very long time I'm back. I'm gonna try this fanfic stuff one more time, but I'm gonna be doing this very differently. I'm only going to focus on one story, and then when I either finish it or lose the spark to continue writing it, I'll move on to another story. I also won't be deadlining any stories or putting it on a schedule like I tried to before. I'll write when I feel like it, and I'll take my time with these. I hope you all enjoy this prologue and until I decide to upload again. Chapter 1. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Professor as Awa theme. There was about 10 seconds of silence before All Might broke it. Okay. He started. It seems like we've both got secrets that need sharing. He facepalmed, realizing that he needs to tell a very long story to this guy. Let's start with names. I'm Toshinori Yagi, better known as All Might. And I'm the kid on the ground started. Izuku M. Midoriya. Nice to meet you both. My name is Sora. The young Keyblade wielder said, with a smile on his face. No surname? Yagi asked. Sora pondered. What's a surname? All Might looked at Sora with a deadpan expression, like he was talking to someone who just spoke riddles. First off, his secret gets noticed by this guy, then he hears about other worlds from the very same kid, and now the boy doesn't even know what a surname is. Never mind. Yagi said. Do you want to start or should I? Start what? Sora nervously questioned, still trying to figure out a good cover-up to what he said. Okay. Yagi said, well, his expression was getting more deadpan than he was a second ago. I'll go first. Nobody except you, young Midoriya, and a few others know about this skinny form. I got an injury from a battle that even fewer people know about, and I only publicly do hero work in my muscle form. That's the shortest way I can tell my story. Sora had nodded and somewhat understood. He got that the big form was the hero form and the skinny form was the not hero form, but the rest was kinda gray, cause he didn't understand how someone could get so hurt that you get skinny and why it had to be a secret. Now that I've told you my secret, it's only fair that you told me yours. Yagi gestured to Sora, who was still looking nervous. Well, Sora started, it's kind of a long story, even if I shorten it out. I've got time. Yagi said, while helping Izuku up and letting him rest on a nearby bench. Play KH3 Ost Final World. Sora's explanation was not as short as he wanted it to be, but he thinks he's got the point across. It still was a very large pill to swallow. So let me get this straight. Yagi said. There are hundreds, if not thousands of other worlds outside of this one, all of them different but still connected, and your job is to go to these worlds and defeat these heartless creatures that want to corrupt the worlds. As well as deal with these other things called nobodies that also want to destroy the worlds, and also deal with even more things called unversed that come from negative feelings that also want to destroy the worlds. And then there's even more monsters called nightmares that will go after any worlds that are in some sort of limbo of sleep, which none of them will never be truly defeated unless you strike them down with that Keyblade. All while previously dealing with 13 people who wanted to end all of the worlds by starting a war that would make a X-Blade that isn't like your Keyblade and unlock a giant heart-shaped moon called Kingdom Hearts. Yes. Sora said. This sounds like some video game series that has way too many plot points for its own good. Yagi said. Okay. Sora said, kinda confused because the only thing he really played that was a video game would be the classic Kingdom games on his gummy phone. So I'm assuming that those Heartless aren't the only ones here. Yogi said, with a slightly worried. No. Sora confirmed. And the ones you defeated will just reappear somewhere else at some random time. So am I just wasting your time when you should be hunting these things down? Yogi questioned. Lake KH3 Ost San Francisco Field. Oh. No. Sora said, helping Toshinori calm down a slight bit. All of the creatures that can only be defeated by Keyblade will go after them if they are here, so they'll just come to me, and in a world like this, they won't really be able to do any damage. Unless they grow enough in numbers or get bigger, which they can only do by going after people. If there's heroes like you always walking the streets, then they won't be able to do much of anything. Toshinori sighed in relief. Well, that's good to know. At least they can be manageable like gangs and organized crime groups. Now that that's taken care of, how long do you think you'll be here for? Sora started, realizing what his situation is. I don't really know. I'm kinda stranded. Wait. Yogi started. How'd you get here? You said you had a ship, right? Yeah, but I didn't get here that way. Sora said. I used what was left of my power to find and save my friend Kairi before I just woke up falling down until I hit a pile of leaves on the ground about an hour ago. Well, this complicates things even more than expected. Yogi started. Look Sora, I get that dealing with these things is your job, and I'm fine with that, but you're not a registered hero, so you'd be seen as a vigilante if you started walking around and dealing with whatever comes after you. So you're gonna need to get registered to be a hero. Okay. Sora said, cheerfully. I'm already a hero in 2 other worlds, so this should be easy. All I have to do is enough heroic deeds for the right reasons, and then I'll be a-okay, right? I like your spirit, but that's not how that works here. Yogi started. You have to publicly register yourself and your abilities through legal methods. And considering your age, you are 15, right? I should be. Sora said, not really knowing how far or close his birthday was at this point. Okay. Yogi continued. You're the right age to start attending a hero course in school. There's a school for heroes. Sora jumped up, thinking about the idea of a school where heroes go in order to learn the ins and outs. Yes. Yogi said. Now if you let me finish, I'd recommend attending the school that young Midoriya here is attempting to get into. UA Academy. Okay. So what do I need to do to get in? Sora asked. If what you said is true, then your skills will be more than enough to pass the practical exam. You just need to study and pass the written exams for you to get in. Yogi continued. What's your education level? My education level. Sora started. Oh. You mean where I'm at in school? I stopped at around my 2nd year in middle school. Cause the past year and a half was when I started this whole Keyblade thing. But Kairi helped me catch up when we weren't busy with the Keyblade duties. Yogi smiled. That's good. Then you should be able to enter easily. Just head over to the library and read enough books about our history and then study that, and you should be good. That's good. But Sora started. Where's a place that I can live at that would accept money? Silence. Toshinori paused, realizing that Sora had a very valid point. Under the circumstances, he's technically homeless. He could pay for a home for Sora until he got the currency he needed, but even that would take a while to do. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost lunch. You can come live with me for a while. Midoriya said, injecting himself into the conversation when he finally wasn't feeling too sore to move. That's the least I can do for you, since this job of yours would be pretty tough when you don't have a place to stay, and since you can't be considered a hero while not having a license, the only way for you to get one being through the school system, as well as factoring in your age. Making you the perfect age to attend, and considering your skills and the education level that you said you had, I'd be happy to help you as well as tutor you, while also continuing my training with all might in order to excel in UA's entrance exam. Kid. Yogi interrupted. You're doing it again. Sorry. Izuku apologized. Sora, though he was lost after he started getting into the school stuff, understood and let out a laugh. If it isn't too much trouble, Izuku. It wouldn't be at all, Sora. Midoriya perked up. Then it settled. Yogi said. While I readjust young Midoriya's schedule, you and he can head over to his residence and study for the exams. Sora smiled and gave Toshinori a thumbs up, while also helping Izuku up off the bench. I'll get him home, Mr. Toshinori. Just Toshinori will do when I'm in this form, All Might said, before buffing up and leaping away with style. Stay safe, kids. Sora smiled and then helped Midoriya get home, with some help from Midoriya giving directions and a few wrong turns later. They both arrived at Izuku's house. Chapter 1 is now out. Hope whoever is left of my followers don't mind this slow start. I'm gonna try and make the chapters as long as the episodes when I start doing those, but for now I'm accounting for the 2 episodes that I skipped by doing this chapter and the next chapter as 2-parters. Hope you enjoy and until I decide to upload again. Chapter 2. Play KH 2.5 Remix Ost Lazy Afternoons. Sora had knocked on the door and Izuku had managed to get himself off of the young Keyblade wielder before it opened, showing a woman. "Oh, Izuku." She started. "You're back home earlier than usual." "Yeah, I know, Mom." Izuku started. "I wore myself out a bit faster than usual. Thankfully my friend here helped me get back home." The mother noticed Sora and promptly spoke to him. "Thank you for helping my son get back home, mister. May I please know your name?" Sora kept his usual positive attitude and introduced himself. "Nice to meet you, ma'am. My name is Sora." "And it was no problem." "Thank you, Sora," responded Izuku's mother, returning the positivity. "My name is Inko Midoriya. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. Please come in." Inko had moved out of the way, allowing both her son and the young man to enter. Despite Sora not knowing any of the customs of this world, he tried his best to be as polite and respectful as possible, paying attention to what Izuku did that looked formal, and copying that. "Dinner won't be ready for another hour, sweetie, so go ahead and rest," Inko said. "If you don't have anywhere to go right now, make yourself comfortable, Sora." "Thank you, Miss Midoriya," Sora said as he slightly bowed, making Inko let out a small giggle. He sat in the living room on the couch, getting comfortable and taking in his surroundings. This was one of the few times that he could get that kind of rest. As he observed the house, he caught a glimpse of Inko approaching him and he turned to her when she sat on the chair across from him. "So you're friends with my son?" she asked. "I've never heard him talk about friends other than Katsuki, so this is a change of pace." "Yeah, but it was fairly recent," Sora said. "He was doing some of his workouts and I noticed and decided to help him out whenever he needed it." "That's nice to hear," she replied, looking a bit more relieved. "I sometimes worry that my little Izuku will overwork himself or get hurt in some kind of accident. Ever since the sludge villain attack a few months ago." "Was Izuku hurt during this attack?" Sora asked, making it seem like he knew about the attack, but not who was involved. "No, he wasn't," she started, "but my son had always wanted to be a hero and he ended up running towards the villain, trying to help his friend Katsuki." Play KH2 Ostriku. Sora had taken a few seconds to think about that, seeing that Izuku was clearly putting in the work, or at least, from what he has been told. This guy reminded Sora of himself and Riku, back when they were kids on the Destiny Islands. The both of them had wanted to gain strength so that they could protect the things that mattered most to them, like their friends. Sora felt a very small pinch inside him, but he was able to hide it and keep smiling. "Sounds to me like he has the heart and mind to do it," Sora started. "Now he's working on getting the body." "I know, but," Inko started, with some tears getting ready to burst. "Even though he's working so hard, I'm always afraid that because he doesn't have a quirk, that if he does get into UA, he'll break himself before he gets the chance to be a hero." Sora stood up and walked over to her, looking her in the eye as he spoke. "I'm applying to UA to Miss Midoriya. If it makes you feel any better, I'll be watching him to make sure that he not only gets into UA, but also become the best hero to come out of it." Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost symbol of peace. This ended up having the opposite reaction that Sora was expecting. Instead of it making her smile and stopping the tears, she ended up bawling, somehow making so many tears that it looked like her eye sockets were geysers. Scrambling for tissues and repeatedly apologizing for making her cry, she finally stopped after a few minutes. "Thank you for saying that, Sora," Inko started, still wiping her tears off of her face. "That really makes me happy to know that there's someone like you out there helping my son achieve his dream." Sora, throwing away the now empty tissue box in his hands, gave Inko a thumbs up while doing so, looking a little bit goofy on purpose to make her giggle a bit. Footsteps were heard soon after. "Mom?" Izuku stumbled through the hallway, trying to figure out what the heck was going on. "Are you okay? I heard you crying." Izuku then saw Sora picking up a lot of tissues from the ground, throwing them away, and nearly filling up the garbage can. After a brief explanation and a few more tissues being thrown away, Izuku understood what had just happened. He stayed out with the two, and they all had a nice talk with each other. Sora and Izuku going over how they're going to help each other out for UA, and Inko making certain that the dinner she was cooking wouldn't burn. Sora had offered to help, but Inko politely declined the offer. By the time it was ready, the three had sat down and began to eat. While eating, Inko was a bit curious about a few things. Play KH 2.5 Remix Ost Afternoon Streets. "If I may ask, Sora," Inko started, "what exactly is your quirk?" "My quirk?" Sora pondered. "You know," Izuku said, looking at Sora, covering for him at the last second. "Your special ability." Oh yeah. Sora replied, now understanding what he meant. I can summon things. Summon things? Inko asked. Like what? Sora stuck out his hand and then summoned his kingdom key, holding it up so the Midoriya family could see. Inko was surprised, and Izuku, though he saw it already, never got a chance to properly admire the sword. Despite it looking more like a blunt force object, it could cut through those heartless things like a hot knife through butter, as it was demonstrated back when both Sora and All Might had fought those things in the park. Its goofy look also made it so that if normal crooks saw it, it would look like a toy, and they wouldn't take it seriously, something that they would regret a few seconds later. It was a good thing that it was in Sora's possession. Wow. Inko responded, looking a bit perplexed but more surprised. What exactly is that? I call it a keyblade because it's a sword that looks like a giant key. Sora answered, making the most legitimate excuse to not changing the name and trying to remember it. Understandable. Inko replied, seeing the logic that Sora provided her. I used to be able to summon a bunch of different ones, as well as elements and other things. Sora continued. But after getting here, I've lost a lot of those skills and I'm gonna need to learn them again. Getting here? Inko questioned. Did you just move into the city? Oh well, not exactly. Sora started, letting his keyblade disappear and then rubbing the back of his head with that hand, nervously laughing as well. Play KH 2.5 Remix asked Sora. He doesn't have a place to stay, Mom. Izuku chipped in, helping Sora explain his situation. I was wondering if he could maybe stay here for now. If it doesn't bother you. Sora added, wanting to make sure that Inko know that he wasn't going to stay if she didn't want him to. You're helping my son reach his dream to become a hero. Inko stated. Someone as kind as you is more than welcome to stay here. Sora ended up jumping out of his seat, cheering for a few seconds, before realizing that he almost hit the table that was holding all the food. This got both Midoriyas to smile and laugh for a few seconds, before Sora joined in the laughter for the last few seconds. Thank you for letting me stay here, Miss Midoriya. Sora said as he bowed. Inko is fine, Sora. Inko replied. There's no need to be formal if we live together. Just remember to not rely on us for everything, okay? I'll be a no-maintenance guy. Sora said. Wait, I mean I'll be a guy that you don't need to take care of. Wait, I mean Sora struggled to find the correct words that he needed. I get it, Sora. Inko said, smiling as she finished her dish and went over to the kitchen to wash it. I won't need to worry about you. Right. Yeah. Sora replied, nodding while he did so. And with me around, you won't have to worry about Izuku as much. He placed his hand on Izuku's shoulder, looking at Inko with his classic Sora smile. I'll do my best not to make you worry about me, Sora. Izuku added. Right. Sora nodded. Inko looked at these two and giggled for a bit. These two boys reminded her of back in the day when Izuku and Katsuki would play hero, before the latter had developed his quirk. It was good to see someone like Sora around Izuku after what had happened between them. After the dinner, Sora had received a tour around the house, was given a blanket for the couch, as there wasn't a guest bedroom, although Sora didn't mind at all. And they all went to bed. Even though this new journey wasn't what he expected, Sora was more than willing to go on it and see it through, like he always does. Chapter 2 is now out. If you're wondering when we catch up to the actual UA stuff, that will be in Chapter 4, as I want to keep it as close as possible to the anime's episodes. So chapters 1 to 3 are all taking place during the 3-month time span in episode 3, it will also help set up the basis of the story. You already know the time in the MHA world that Sora is in, and you now also know his situation. Next up will be his skill level, my excuse for making him weak aka level 1 if it wasn't too clear. If it wasn't clear to anyone, this is taking place after the events of KH3 and using some context from the Remind trailer. I'm not going to put in the KH cast, aside from either mentions or something else that I have planned in chapter 3. I hope you enjoyed this chapter and until I decide to upload again. Chapter 3. Play KH Rechain of Memories Os Destiny Islands. It's been about 2.5 months ever since Sora had arrived to this new world and he's managed to adapt rather quickly. Thanks to the yen that was loaned by Inko, Sora was able to have some casual clothing and not just his regular attire, though he did get clothes that ended up looking exactly like his older wardrobe from previous adventures, and those were his preferred clothes to casually wear. While Izuku was out cleaning up the coastline for his training, Sora would sit by the stairs and either be reading about this world's history, cheering his friend on, or fighting any Heartless that found this spot. Whenever the Heartless showed up, it let Sora stretch out his body a bit, since he wasn't legally allowed to fight them in the city. He could really only fight the ones that were in closed-off areas or in places where no one was around. It sucked because he felt like he needed to get stronger as well as actually do his job. But he also understood that he had to obey the laws of this world, and considering that he still needed to keep the other worlds a secret from the rest of the population, he had to oblige. Or try to explain to the other heroes why a random teen is going around doing their job. The history of this world was very weird to Sora, even weirder than the other worlds that he's been to. And he's been to some crazy worlds. Apparently somewhere in China, a kid had somehow gotten a superpower that made him glow, and then more and more people started getting these powers. At first it was chaotic, but over time, the world started to accept this as the norm, dubbing the powers as quirks, making the hero a job title, and then just talking about certain historical battles between the greatest heroes and some of the most powerful villains. The laws in this world were weird as well, but not uncalled for. Making quirks illegal, unless by heroes or people with compatible quirks doing certain jobs, would make the world less chaotic. And it also helps that students can do hero work after getting a license during their second year, meaning that there are plenty more heroes than what is actually documented, and there always will be, because everyone wants to be a hero in this world. It just felt a bit strange that it wasn't allowed for self-defense against someone else using their quirk on you, but if heroes really are everywhere, then these incidents probably rarely happen at all. Almost 2 weeks go by and it's basically the same. Sora, while on his way to the coastline, take down any group of Heartless that he sees in unpopulated areas, sits down at the bottom of the staircase, and watches Izuku do his training. He wants to help his friend out, but he knows that it would actually be bad if he did that, so he does his usual and cheers him on, until he sees something in the water. A box with a familiar symbol on it. Sora gets up and walks over to the edge of the water, looking over at the box as it slowly floats over towards him. Izuku takes notice of this, thinking that Sora was going to help him clean. He calls to Sora. "Sora." Izuku called out. "I'm still able to clean on my own. It's okay for you to watch." Sora looked over and hollered back. "I know, but this thing coming up looks like something that I should get." Confused, Izuku places the junk he had been dragging into the pile he made and jogged over to Sora. Looking at the box that was floating towards the two, he was still a bit confused. The only thing that was on the box that he could see was 3 black circles overlapping each other, making some kind of mouse head. It looked to be sealed tight with a big lock, and it didn't look like anything special. "Hey kid." A third voice called out. "Don't start slacking." The third voice was Yagi, driving a pickup truck that recently had a pile of garbage in it, but was now empty. Midoriya had made a very large amount of progress ever since he started, and he even looked much more built compared to when Sora had first met him. Ashinori had walked up to the two of them and then looked over at the box that the two were looking at. "You waiting for more junk to reach the sand on here or something?" Yagi questioned. "There's still some already on the sand for you to pick up, young Midoriya." Oh, right." Izuku replied, realizing that he still had to haul the garbage into a pile and get it in the truck bed. The box had finally made it to the shore by the time that Izuku was back to training. Sora had walked over to it, inspecting the exterior like he was seeing some sort of treasure chest. Toshinori had noticed this and walked over to Sora. It was strange to the hero, because he never saw Sora look so shocked. "Young Sora." Yagi started. "You seem to be really focused on that box there." Sora turned to Toshinori and spoke a bit more softly than normal. "Yeah." He started. "I've seen that symbol on there before. I think I know where this came from." That surprised Yagi for a second, but before he could say anything, Sora had already summoned his kingdom key and pointed it towards the box. "Wait." Yagi said. "What are you doing?" The tip of the kingdom key started to glow, then the lock on the chest had started to glimmer. After a few seconds, the key had shot out a small beam of light into the lock. After that had happened, the lock had turned into tiny particles of light that dissipated. Sora then tapped the top of the chest with the key, and then it slowly opened. Play KH 358 halves days ostmusi pour lot restes. What was inside the chest was about 10 envelopes, each sealed tightly, but all marked with 2 words on them. To Sora. Yagi was just as surprised as Sora. How did these get here? Why was it floating out in the ocean? When were these made? Where did they come from? What does this mean? Sora, however, already knew the answers to these. If Kairi's letter could float from the Destiny Islands to the shores of the Realm of Darkness, then anything is possible. He took all 10 envelopes and walked over to the staircase, Yagi next to him, who also called Izuku over, allowing the kid to see this too. "You got messages for you in that chest?" Midoriya asked, just as confused as his idol. "I've been in other worlds and have had things sent to me by my friends," Sora explained. "This isn't too big of a surprise." "But how does that work?" Yagi had asked. "If you have a strong enough bond with someone, then anything is possible with them," Sora answered. Sora had opened up the first envelope. He knew the handwriting and read it aloud. "Thinking of you, wherever you are. I'm sorry that I have caused you to leave, though I will look for you as long as I breathe. As I said in my last letter, though there are many worlds, they all share the same sky. One sky, one destiny. I hope my message gets out to you, Sora. I miss you very much. And I hope you can come home. How else are you going to give this back? Sora had felt something else in the letter and he pulled it out. It was something that he didn't expect to see again. Kairi's good luck charm. She put it in the note for Sora so he could have something to keep them connected. Sora felt something tug inside of him and he held the charm to his chest. I miss you too, Kairi. Sora said softly. Yagi and Izuku saw that Sora was in a very sensitive mood, but while Yagi put his hand on Sora's shoulder, Izuku had hugged him. Sora had hugged his friend back with his free arm and thanked both of them for doing their best to comfort him. The two had guessed that after that first letter, and the trinket that came from it came from one of Sora's very close friends. Being separated from said friend for almost 3 months, with little chance of seeing them again, would really drag someone down. The fact that this letter and that object was sent shows that this friend of Sora's still cares about him and hopes to see the kid again. Sora then opened the next letter and read it. Looking for you as this letter was made. You may be missing for now, but I'll find you and bring you back. You've saved me more times than I've saved you. I'm planning on making that number even. This fell off of you before you left for Kairi. I'd figure you'd want it back. Sora grabbed what was in the envelope and saw that it was his crown necklace. He never noticed that it was gone. Leave it to Riku to be the one who catches the details. You were always the smartest out of us three, huh? Sora said. The next envelope was something that he didn't expect. Thank you for everything that you've done, Sora. I knew that you would make everything right. You are my other half. I couldn't join the search for you, but that doesn't mean that I'm not hoping for your return. I want you to join us on the clock tower sometime and have ice cream with us. That is what friends do after all, right? I also heard that friends give each other gifts too, so have this, from me to you. Sora grabbed the item and saw that it was the X piece on Roxa's zipper. Sora chuckled a bit and looked up. I'll find a way back and do just that, Roxas. The next was once again from someone who Sora didn't expect. Hey Sora. When you get this letter, you'll be packing in gifts from all your friends. I know we got off to a rough start, you know, being enemies and all, but I'm glad that you guys gave me a chance. I'm living the dream now. I'm human again, got myself a keyblade, saved the worlds from total darkness, and now with all the worlds at peace, I can sleep whenever my friends don't drag me out of bed. Have this as a token of thanks, and don't lose it. Got it memorized. I got it memorized, Axel. Sora said, as he held out the gift that Axel gave him. It was a tiny trinket that looked like Axel's glaives before he got a keyblade. The next set of envelopes were from the rest of the Guardians of Light, telling them about their lives, as they either look for him or continue to live those lives. Terra, Aqua, and Ven are back at their home, keeping it tidy and starting to train Axel and Kairi, in place of Merlin. The King, Donald and Goofy were with Riku, looking for him, telling Sora that they wouldn't stop until they found him, and his friends from Radiant Garden were also holding out for Sora to either be found or come back, for Enzo and the other researchers. To the Restoration Committee that's finishing up with the restoration. The gifts that were left were pretty varied. A few pictures of Sora's friends and comrades, a small note about how to use basic magic spells like fire and water, a few synthesis recipes, and some more money. Even though the last two weren't going to really be valuable, he still held on to those. It sounds like your friends are looking for you. Yogi said, smiling while he speaks. Izuku was on the verge of crying from all of those letters. All of that kindness was too much and he didn't even know these people. He only heard small bits from Sora whenever they talked, but he didn't ask about it because he didn't want to get touchy about it. He was able to hold it in just barely, but that didn't stop Yagi from teasing the kid about it. Yeah. Sora said, while also placing his arm around Izuku's shoulder. I hope they find me soon. I'd really want you to meet them. I'd like that a lot, Sora. Yagi replied. Me too. Izuku also responded, finally stopping himself from crying and regaining his cool. The day went by normally after that. Sora had taken those gifts home and placed them in the cabinet that Inko let him have for storing some things. He held onto Kairi's good luck charm, his necklace that Riku returned, and Axel and Roxa's gifts. After that, Sora had went to bed and slept for the night. Let's start the year off strong with the feels. This should hopefully help set up why Sora won't be crazy strong after 3 months of being here, and also give him the basics that he always gets at the start of his adventures, just with a few bonuses. I tried to capture the characters in the letters, seeing as I don't plan on them to having them show up in the story. Now that I've made it to the end of that. The next chapter will take the end of episode 3 and most of episode 4, going on the main My Hero story. Hope you guys enjoy this chapter and until I decide to upload again. Chapter 4. Play KH3 Ost World Map. It was 6:02 AM. Sora was woken up by Inko at this time, so he could be fully awake by the time he got to UA. Though Sora wanted to wake up earlier, Inko thought it better that he got as much rest as he needed for the exams today. She couldn't say the same for her son however, as Izuku had left before the sun even got up in order to finish his training before the exams. Inko had made food for the both of them, and Sora said he'd give it to Izuku if Sora saw him before the exams. After eating his own and getting ready, he went off towards UA ready for the exams. By the time he got there, he saw Izuku as he was tripping and about to hit the floor until a girl stopped his fall and helped him back up. Sora, deciding to wait until the conversation, if you could even call that interaction between the two as one. Boku no Hero Academia Ostodamagi. Hey Izuku. Sora called out. Oh. Izuku snapped out of whatever got over him. Hey Sora. You okay? Sora asked. You don't look 100%. Yeah. Midoriya answered. Just tired from training. Hey, before you head in, Sora started, giving his friend a sealed box. You want some food to refuel? Izuku looked inside the box and saw some katsudon, his favorite food. Taking Sora up on the offer, since there was still some time, he ate up, albeit rather quickly, and they both headed inside to start the exams. They were seated separately, and when arrived, the exams begun. Silence. The test sheets were handed out one at a time, passed down from person to person. When everyone got their test, they could start. Despite Sora having the proper educational level, that didn't exactly mean that he was 100% confident he could pass the written portion of the exam. That didn't stop him from doing his best though, and that's all he could do. Involving anything he couldn't figure out on his own, if it was multiple choice, he guessed. If not, then he also guessed, but kept the answer short. When he finished, he checked to see if he left anything out or wasn't sure of that he could maybe remember before time was up. After the written exam was finished, more sheets of paper were passed down, this time detailing the practical exam. A few more minutes pass by and someone walks onto the stage. Lights start turning on, and the man introduces himself. What's up UA candidates? The man hollered. Thanks for tuning into me, your school DJ. Come on and let me hear ya. Sora recognized the voice from somewhere, but couldn't put his finger on it. Instead of focusing on that, he paid attention to what the man was saying. Keeping it mellow, eh? He continued. That's fine, I'll skip straight to the main show. Let's talk about how this practical exam is gonna go down, okay? Are you ready? The room did not respond. Boku no Hero Academia Ostue session. In the distance, Sora could very slightly hear Izuku attempt to quietly geek out over the guy. The info was nice to know however, and it helped Sora remember that this guy was apparently Present Mick, the guy he hears from time to time on the radio back at Midoriya's house. Like your application said, Present started. Today you rockin' boys and girls will be out there conducting 10-minute mock battles in super hip urban settings. The screen behind the Present Mick started showing pictures and a weird but funny video game-like style of how the battle works, as Mick explains it. Gird your loins my friends. Mick continued. After I drop the Mick, you'll head to your specified battle centers. Sound good? There was silence. Okay. Sora looked at his card and saw that the center he was assigned to was C. Mick continued the explanation. Okay, let's check out your targets. There are 3 types of foe villains in every battle center. You'll earn points based on their level of difficulty, so better choose wisely. Your goal in this train is to use your quirk to raise your score by shredding these foe villains like a mid-song guitar solo. But check it and make sure you keep things heroic. Attacking other examinees is a UA no-no, you dig. Sora had understood it and was fine with that explanation until another person had raised his hand and stood up, pointing something out. Excuse me sir, but I have a question. The person said. Hit me. Mick responded, letting the light shine on the examine. On the printout, you listed 4 types of villains, not 3. He stated. With all respect, if this is an error on UA material, it's shameful. We are exemplary students. We expect the best from Japan's most notable school. A mistake such as this won't do. After that, he pointed to another student and critiqued him on his mumbling and ordered him to stop. Sora could only guess Izuku was the one being reprimanded. Even if Sora spoke out to defend his friend, it would probably start a scene, so he kept quiet and took a mental note to encourage Midoriya to not let this guy's words drag him down. Alright, examinee number 7111, thanks for calling in with your request. Mick said, with a thumbs up. The 4th villain type is worth 0 points. That guy is just an obstacle we'll be throwing in your way. There's one in every battle center. Think of it as a hurdle you should try and avoid. It's not that it can't be beaten. It's just that there's no point. I recommend my listeners try to ignore it and just focus on the ones on top of the charts. The guy who asked the question then bowed, thanked Mick and let him continue. That's all I got for you today. Mick concluded. I'll sign off with a little present. A sample of our school motto. As General Napoleon Bonaparte once laid down, a true hero is one who overcomes life's misfortunes. MMMHMM, now that's a tasty sound bite. You ready to go beyond? Let's hear a plus ultra. The words intensely appeared on the screen, looking like a sound effect from a comic book. However, instead of silence for another few seconds, Sora actually hollered it out with some energy before being stared at by those around him. He didn't care though. Yeah. Nick cheered. I like that kid's groove. Good luck. Hope you practice hitting more than just books. Everyone left and started heading towards their designated battle centers, but before Sora went to his, he found Izuku and stopped him for a second. You doing okay, Izuku? Sora asked. Yeah, just nervous. Midoriya responded, looking just as nervous as he said he was. Hey, you got this. Sora said. You worked so hard for the past 3 months I've been with you. All that training is gonna pay off today. Just you watch. Izuku perked up and then nodded, feeling much better now. With Sora as a constant emotional support for those past 3 months, he's gotten a bit more confident. Not so much so that would be drastic, but it was much easier for him to get back into a positive viewpoint with his friend around. After that bit of support, the two then went to their assigned battle centers. Play KHDDD Ost access the grid. Sora waited patiently, taking in the surroundings, noticing how big this battle center was. He figured it would be about the size of a small urban area, but it was almost as big as the area of San Francisco that he got to explore. Looking around, he saw dozens of people, some with special gear, others with some small trinkets, and some with nothing but their abilities to help them through this. This test wasn't something to be taken lightly, it seemed, as many people were dead serious from either their expression, posture, or the fact that some people were slowly inching their way to the front of the group. Sora felt much more confident in this department. He's not the best with a pen and paper, but when it comes to breaking things and saving people, he's got that covered even more than sea salt ice cream on a popsicle stick. Play KH3 Ost shrouding dark cloud. Right. Let's start. Present Mick shouted out. Catching everyone's attention. Get moving. There are no countdowns in real battles. Sora got the memo as well as a majority of the other people, and they all started sprinting, jumping, flying, skating, doing whatever they did to get in and get the points they needed. Sora was close to the front of the crowd and summoned his kingdom key, getting ready to break some bots and pass this exam. He broke off from the crowd and saw a group of 2 3-pointer bots, a 2-pointer bot, and a 1-pointer bot. Not slowing down, Sora had sprinted towards the group and easily cut down the bots. He looked around for more, but didn't notice a 3-pointer getting ready to attack. By the time Sora noticed it, it had already charged towards him, but he dodged and got ready to attack it. Just then, what looked like a tongue grabbed it and slammed it into the ground. He saw that the person who did that was a girl who was sticking to the wall, retracting her tongue and then looking at Sora for a split second before running ahead. Thanks for the save. Sora called out, hoping that she got that. As he then ran off in another direction, with a few other people following him. 5 minutes went by as he continued taking down some bots, keeping count, his score being 17 right now. Noticing something out of the corner of his eye, he thought he saw something abnormal, and he went to check it out. He looked around the area he was in and then saw something that wasn't what he wanted to see. Play KH 2.5 Remix Ost Rowdy Rumble. They were heartless, and they were scattering. Most of them were shadows and soldiers, but the one that got his attention the most was the possessor that bolted out of there. Sora immediately gunned towards them, taking out as many as he could before too many could get away. Dang it. Sora said. The one time I didn't want to see these guys. Sora ran out of the alleyway he was in and notices that most of them had taken to the roofs or were heading over to where the big crowds were, but he didn't see the possessor. He knew that if he didn't take these guys out, then there would probably be some casualties, and he had to act fast. Let's see if I still got it. Sora said out loud, looking for something very specific. He managed to find what he was looking for, a street light, and then he got low to the ground, started glowing blue around his body, and then zoomed at instant speed towards the pole of the light. Using his flow motion, he latched onto it with his keyblade and spun around, keeping him momentum. He then lunged himself towards the closest Heartless, taking it out in an instant, then keeping his eye on the closest one he could see, he zoomed over to the next one, and the next and the next. Taking out all the ones he could see. He knew that wasn't all of them, and then sprinted over to the nearest tall building, ran up the walls, using some flow motion to boost himself to the top, and then looked around for the rest. He saw 2 groups. One going towards the large group of students, and the other attempting to go around and maybe cut off their escape. Sora wasted no time and used his flow motion to speed blitz himself towards the group going straight for the examinees. Taking the Heartless out before they even got close. Running to the top of the closest building he was at, he then spotted the other group and took off towards them. When he got to those Heartless, they were about to attack some other examinees when they didn't notice. Sora wasn't going to let that happen however, and he then slid past the people and took the Heartless out almost instantly. He didn't stop to wave at the others like he usually would, instead, sprinting towards the tallest building that was in this battle center and getting to the top. Silence. 2 minutes were left in this exam, but Sora didn't care right now. He perched himself on the building and was looking in every direction that he could see, trying to find the possessor before it could do some serious damage. But suddenly, the ground started to shake and some buildings started to collapse, showing a giant villain bot. No doubt it was the Zero Pointer, seeing as it looked like what the image was on the sheet. Initially Sora didn't show any interest for a second, but then he realized something. That thing could be seen from the entire city, and if the possessor gets to it, then people are going to die. And as soon as he thought that, he saw the possessor going straight for it, and it was almost there. Sora didn't waste any more time and now had a new goal. Take down that robot. Play KH3 Ostboss theme Titan Kraken. When Sora got there, it was too late. The possessor was already inside it, and it started showing. As dark smoke started to emanate from it, its eyes began to glow yellow, and a small Heartless symbol appeared on the back of its head. Sora held his keyblade tight and got ready for a battle. The giant bot took notice of Sora and swung its massive arms down, trying to crush the keyblade wielder in one strike, destroying the streets and any buildings in its way. Sora, however, used his Flamotion to get to the rooftop of the closest building. As that structure was falling apart, he used Flamotion again to fly over to a giant piece of debris that was launched into the air above himself, landing on it mid-air, and then jumping off of it and blitzing towards the Zero Pointer. The possessor had noticed Sora, but was too slow to react as he latched onto the Zero Pointer and dragged his keyblade on one of its arms, cutting it open as he ran towards the head. The gigantic bot did manage to use its other arm and knock Sora away from its head, giving it more time to use its body against the keyblade wielder. Sora was now in a state of freefall, but he managed to recover while in that state and then move himself towards the continuous tracks that made this behemoth move, slamming his keyblade down and destroying one of the sets of tracks, making it unable to move straight. The Zero Pointer had used its remaining set of tracks to turn around as fast as it could and blow Sora away, giving them some distance and allowing the Titan to grab a piece of a building and throw it towards Sora. Sora couldn't dodge and was forced to take the hit, but he had one more trick up his sleeve. He twirled the Kingdom Key in his hand, and soon his clothes had burst into light for a split second before changing colors and matching his attire from his adventure against Organization Shi, completely obliterating the debris thrown at Sora. He was now in his second form. Sora had wasted no time, using his Flamotion one more time and gunning towards the other set of tracks, dragging his blade on them and destroying them with little effort as he ran to the back of this gargantuan robot. He jumped onto its back and began running towards the top, noticing that the one arm it had left was gearing up to swing towards the young man. He didn't falter and continued towards the head until the arm had swung itself and nearly swatted Sora off of its back. Sora had latched onto the hand and began to cut it apart, shredding all of its fingers and leaving a large amount of gashes on the palm. After that was done, he bolted towards the head, letting the Kingdom Key drag behind him, destroying the enormous arm in the process. All that was left was the head, but the possessor did not run away. It instead started spinning and shaking the head rapidly, trying to get Sora off, but he didn't budge, attacking the head and eviscerating it until there was nothing left. Sora saw the possessor attempt to run, but he got in front of it and then used the power he stored up to finish it off with a series of thrusts from multiple directions. Sonic Blade. He called out as he thrusted one last time, ending the Heartless and stopping it from causing any more damage. After that, he then slid off the now annihilated threat and looked around to see if that was it. He got them all it seemed, and he powered down. Silence. I'm Zoop. Nick had called out, with an alarm signaling that the exam was over. When Sora heard that, it stung a bit. With the Heartless distracting him, he didn't have the time to get the points he needed, but he wasn't going to just let those guys run off. They would have caused so much mayhem and might have killed half of the people here if he didn't go and stop them. Even though he flunked the exam, he was still proud of himself for sticking to his feelings and being a hero, even if nobody saw it. He left the battle center with a smile on his face. Okay. Now we get to the real story. I hope my fight writing is still up to par with what I used to do. And yes, Sora, the Keyblade's chosen one, flunked the test. He seems to have a bad record with this, seeing as the Mark of Mastery had the exact same result. As for chapters onward, you'll have to wait and see how I explain Sora's involvement with the story. Some of you may like it, others may hate it, but I think it will work. Hope you enjoy and until I decide to upload again. Chapter 5. Play KH 1.5 Remix OS Treasured Memories. Sora and Izuku were back at home, each sitting on the couch. Midoriya looked like a nervous trainwreck, impatiently waiting and thinking about some stuff, while Sora, who already knew he botched it, just tried reassuring his friend that it'll work out somehow for the kid. He didn't tell either one of the Midoriyas that he failed the exam. He didn't want to worry either one or get into detail as to why he failed. At least until after Izuku and he got his results would be when he breaks the news to them, that way it'll be a bit more convincing. As if on cue, the door had opened to show Inko on the floor, frantically crawling in place. "There's letters." She started. "Izuku, Sora, they came, look, you got letters." After she stopped to catch her breath, she then had an envelope in each hand. One for Izuku and another for Sora. "Ah. They're here. Each of your test results, from UA." Izuku had a very worrying stare, and Sora had noticed it, but it didn't stop the Keyblade wielder from telling him that it'll be fine. "Seriously, Izuku, you gotta learn to think about the positives first," Sora said. "Everyone always thinks they fail, and because of that, when they do, they just feel even worse because they had low expectations for themselves." "That's easy for you to say," Sora, Izuku rebutted. "With your skills, you most likely perfected the practical exam." "I wouldn't say perfected it," Sora replied. "But I gave it my all because I wasn't thinking about the negative things off of the top of my head. Whenever I fight, console, or do any kind of help, I just think about all of the good things that will come out of it. Sure, the bad stuff could be prominent, but I know that as long as I keep a good feeling on the outward part of me, then I can go full steam and not have to worry," Sora, Izuku said. He was speechless from the way that Sora had spoken to him. Despite being with this guy for 3 months now, he never really got to know him outside of basics, like fashion preference, food, and so on. He never asked about Sora's mindset on what allowed him to fight those creatures for more than a year without losing his sanity, let alone his positive outlook on life. Anyway, Sora continued as he got the envelopes and helped Inko up. "Here's your test results, Izuku. Go ahead and open it up and watch yourself smile as you pass with flying colors." Thanks," Izuku responded, a little teary-eyed. I'm gonna go to my room and look, okay?" "That's fine, Izuku honey," Inko said, letting her son go to his room and see his results. She looked over to Sora to see him having a kind of somber smile on his face. "What's wrong, Sora?" "Oh, me?" the spiky-haired boy replied. "I'm okay." "You look a little bit down, Sora," Inko stated. "Do you think you failed the exams?" Sora had opened the note and held out the disc inside it. "I know I did. But I don't regret the reason why." Inko was confused and sat next to Sora. "What do you mean by that?" "I'll talk about it after this plays," Sora said, placing the disc down and letting it play. "Play KH Unchained Os, dearly beloved." The disc brought up a screen in front of the two, showing a small white rat. "Greetings, Sora," the rat started. "By the time you are seeing this recording, that means the results for your examination is finished and ready to be presented to you. But before that, I believe an introduction is in order. I am Nezu, the principal of the very well-known UA Academy." "Good to know," Sora said. "Moving on to your results. You had just barely managed to get below a passable score for the written examination, however, just because it wasn't a great score doesn't mean you have lost yet." This guy was making it sound like he passed. But that shouldn't be possible. He barely beat any robots, and if there were other methods to getting points, then the Heartless would have still made it impossible for him to even try those other methods. The practical examination is where it got interesting with you, it seems, as while at the start, you were focused on the exam itself, however, you saw something that we didn't see, and when we looked back on the footage, we saw full well what you did. Sora was a little surprised to hear that they actually went back to their footage to look at his actions specifically, but then again, they probably did that with every student. Regardless, he continued listening to Nezu. The screen then showed Sora's fight with the Heartless and the possessed zero-pointer robot. Those creatures, whatever they are, were not a part of the examination, but you took it upon yourself to not only take these things on, but single-handedly defeat them, leaving none left to threaten the other examinees. Sora was happy to hear that Nezu had seen this feat of heroism. This act of selfless heroism would have earned you so many combat and rescue points if it were up to me, however, I was unable to change the results of your test, solely because I do not know what these things are. I only have the words of one of my newest faculty members to tell me that these things are a threat. So he failed, as he predicted. He wasn't surprised. Sora was waiting for Nezu to say goodbye, but he then got something else before that. "That is why I am going to need you to come meet with me in my office, as well as anyone else who was with you when watching this message, as I am sure that they either also know the situation that you are in, or are just now learning it, and would otherwise ask for an explanation." Sora had looked over to Inko, who was a little confused and also a little bit scared because she had no idea what those creatures were either. The boys had never told Inko, mainly because they both thought that Inko would refuse keeping Sora here, solely for the fact that the Heartless are attracted to the Keyblade like moths to a light. You can explain these creatures to me and whoever else necessary. And do not worry. I was already informed that this is to be a very closely kept secret. You can trust me on keeping it that way, as I have a few myself that I keep just as close. That is all for now. I hope to see you soon, Sora. Silence. The video ended, and Sora then immediately looked over to Inko, slightly nervously. I can explain. He said. Do it at UA. She said, trying to keep calm and not freak out at what she saw and heard just now. Let's wait until Izuku comes out and then I'll take you. Got it. Sora agreed. This was going to be very awkward until then. Play KH3 Remind Ost Radiant Garden. After hearing the good news from Izuku, the two had set off, though they didn't bring Izuku with them, mainly because Inko was already stressing out enough and she just wanted to keep the thought of her son making it into UA as the only thought about him in her mind. Izuku also had someplace to go. The trip took a bit, but they eventually made it to the entrance and it thankfully wasn't closed off. They slowly made their way through the halls, making their way to the principal's office. When they arrived, they knocked and waited for a response. You may come in, responded Nezu's voice. The two came in, first Sora and then Inko. Ah yes. Nezu started. I see you received my request, Sora. And if I may ask, who might you be, madam? I am Inko Midoriya. She answered. Sora currently is a resident in my home. I see. Nezu replied. Well, it is a pleasure to meet you, Miss Midoriya. It is also a pleasure to meet you as well, Sora. Oh, the pleasure is all mine, Mr. Nezu, sir. Sora said, trying to figure out how he should talk to this guy. Please, have a seat. We have some things to discuss, do we not? Nezu gestured to them. The two each took a chair and then proceeded to each collect their thoughts. Nezu gave both of them the time they needed. Sora had finally spoken up. Okay, so what do you need me to explain? Sora asked. From what I have already been informed of and left to imply, it would be best to start with who and what you are exactly. Sora could already tell that this guy had to have been in touch with Toshinori. Maybe he called Nezu and told him about the Heartless over the phone. Maybe he just put the pieces together on his own, like King Mickey would. They're both mice. Rats. Whatever species they are, it's likely the same, and the king was really smart. Well, to Sora he was. Play KH 2.5 Remix Ost Cavern of Remembrance. Okay. My name is Sora, and I'm a guardian of light who wields the Keyblade and fights the forces of darkness. So in a way I'm sort of a hero, but instead of on this world, it's on all worlds that I've traveled to and dealt with the darkness. Ah, I see. Nezu started. And I am to assume that these creatures are a part of these forces of darkness. Yes. Sora answered. Those creatures specifically are called Heartless. They're creatures that come from the darkness inside of a person, and if that person can't control it. Are there any other creatures that I should be familiar with? Nezu questioned. There are 3 others that I can think of off the top of my head. Sora responded. There are the nobodies, that are empty shells of people who had strong enough hearts to go on after being consumed by the darkness. They look all silvery whitish and move around like they're made of rubber. Useful. And the others. Nezu remarked. The next set of enemies are the unversed. Sora continued. They come from very powerful negative emotions, and they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. The only thing that I can tell is consistent with them is that they have narrow, almost lightning bolt-like eyes that glow red. And the last one? Nezu requested. The last set of enemies are called nightmares. I don't know much about them, but they're like evil spirits that only show up when a world is locked in some sort of sleep-like limbo, but nobody is actually asleep. It's more like the world itself, just well, I have no idea. The nightmares are usually purple and dark bluish in color. Are there any other kinds of ways to identify these creatures? Nezu asked. They each have a symbol on them. Sora answered. I can draw them on some paper if you would like. Nezu handed Sora some paper and a pencil. The boy then began drawing the symbols while Nezu patiently waited. It was then that the principal had noticed Inko, who looked like her brain was about to be fried. I take it that this is your first time hearing this as well? Nezu implied. Why yes. Inko responded, trying to keep herself from passing out. It is understandable that this may be a bit much to take in. Nezu started. I myself am also finding it rather hard to believe, but that is why I am hearing this out. On the chance that this is true, the information that is being provided here would be very beneficial in the future. Okay. Sora said. I'm not the best at drawing, but I made sure to draw them as best as I could. Sora had shown the drawings to Nezu, allowing him to study each detail. The Heartless emblem was literally a heart shape with thorn-like vines crossing them off. The Nobody emblem was some sort of cross with an upside-down heart with 2 holes in it at the bottom. The unversed emblem was a twin set of shapes that crossed each other, and the hole in the middle formed some sort of incomplete heart. The nightmare emblem was once again a heart symbol that was crossed off, but this time, it was dark purple wing-looking things that crossed a heart off. In any case, Nezu got the gist that all of these things are somehow connected to the heart. Is there anything else that can be said about these things? Nezu asked. Not that I can think of, sir. Sora answered. Okay then. Nezu responded. Now my next major question is, what are your intentions enrolling into UA Sora? To learn more about this world, legally become a hero, and take out all of the forces of darkness. Sora replied. So you're already familiar with our laws, I take it? Nezu questioned. Yes. Sora said. Alright. Nezu started. Now my last question. Is there any kind of valid proof that what you are saying is actually true? I can't just believe everything you say off the bat based on one encounter and your words alone. Sora was frozen for a second. That actually made sense. It sounds so ridiculous when spoken that it would be impossible to believe. If Donald and Goofy were here, he probably wouldn't have even spilled the beans in the first place. Heck, even if Jiminy were Jiminy. His journal. He wrote it down in Sora's gummy phone. Right here. Sora confidently said, handing Nezu the phone. Play KH 1.5 remix OST hand in hand. After about 10 minutes of looking on the phone, seeing pictures, videos, journal entries and even looking at the calls that were recorded on the phone, Nezu was able to firmly believe that what Sora said was true. From what I've been given, there is no reason for me to deny that what you have told me is the truth. Nezu started. It is a good thing that you were able to back up your claim, Sora. You see, at first, I assumed that this was all some sort of setup in order to get you into this academy. I had my doubts that this was the case, however, when it was All Might himself who told me of these creatures being a real threat. I still needed you to prove it yourself though, and now that you have, I can officially say that you are more than welcome here as a student of this fine establishment. Woohoo! Yeah. Sora cheered. The classes were already filled in before you arrived, just in case you couldn't prove your case to me, but I'll simply add you into one of the hero course classes and an extra student. Nezu explained. Thank you very much, sir. Sora responded cheerfully. You're welcome, Sora. Nezu replied, with a smile on his face. He then looked over to Inko. Are you alright, Miss Midoriya? Inko was starting to process this information for herself. It was a lot to take in. First off, Sora is basically a hero who is on par with All Might in heroism. Secondly, he's friends with her son, who really needed a positive influence like Sora in his life. Thirdly, she's basically sheltering someone whose job is to keep the entire world safe from these creatures, meaning that he probably kept them away from Izuku during their outings. Fourthly, with all the crap Sora has been through, she just wants to hug him, but also slap him for not telling her straight away, even though she probably wouldn't have believed it at all. And lastly, she realized that Izuku had been helping Sora out this entire time, giving Sora this cover story that he had made up for the past 3 months, which makes her even more proud of her son than she already was. I'm more than alright, Mr. Nezu. Inko responded. It's just a lot to take in at once. Nezu smiled. Well, I'll get the necessary paperwork for your enrollment done right now. You are free to leave and rest before you start school. Thank you. Both Sora and Inko said, bowing their heads in respect and leaving the office. The two of them then took the same way back to the house, with Inko talking non-stop about how proud she is of both Izuku and Sora, and how both of them are such kind and pure-hearted people who will make amazing heroes. Sora was a bit embarrassed with all the compliments, but he kept his. They got home, Izuku was already there and getting ready for bed. Sora had told Izuku the good news, and Inko had told Izuku what happened after that. Now that the boys didn't need to keep it a secret to her anymore, it was much easier for Sora to figure out how to have a good cover story for when he gets to UA. Inko said she would help as well, but because of how late it was, the boys needed to get some sleep. They had school tomorrow. Hey guys. I'm back. I decided to continue the story after I played Remind and then implement that into the story. Now that it is out and I beat it, I'm back to writing this. So yes, Sora is now a student at UA and he isn't replacing anyone. Hope you guys don't mind that, because I don't want to change the story too much by getting rid of any characters. I also want to thank the people here who have read and support this story so far. It's kinda funny that a story like this is what people want to see, but I'm not complaining. Anyways, until I decide to upload again. Chapter 6. Play Boku no Hero Academia OST bright and cheerful. Sora was waiting outside the house, fully dressed in his school uniform. For a last-second send, he was surprised that it was a perfect fit. The sleeves weren't too long or short. The tie was easy to put on and wasn't tugging his neck. His pants were the perfect length. Everything was sharp and neat. He was a bit used to school uniforms, thanks to his old school that he really doesn't talk about much at all, having similar uniforms. The only difference he made to it was that he took the 4 charms that he got back during Izuku's beach cleaning and put them in places he thought comfortable. The crown necklace he wore over the shirt. He had Kairi's good luck charm hanging out of his right pocket, and he had Axel and Roxa's gifts inside his left. He figured he'd take his friends with him on this new adventure. And this would make him look a bit unique but not stand out too much. If the teacher said to put them away, he could just hide them under the uniform, easy as that. Izuku also had bought Sora a backpack a few days before the exam so that he could put the stuff he needed in there. Now that he was heading to school, he packed the essentials. A few writing utensils, some composition books, a water bottle if he was either thirsty or got a dry throat. At least that's what Izuku said was essential to him. But he also brought the paper with the basic spells on it so he could maybe practice some more with them during his free time. He figured out Blizzard on his own, and Fire was easy to figure out again, but he was having a small bit of trouble figuring out Water, and since it was the other spell on the paper, he figured he'd take it and try during his spare time. He saw the door open up and out came Izuku, dressed for success, although the tie was a bit puffy, it looked good. Made the guy look a bit more unique in a good way. Sora waved him over and waited for his green-haired friend to get to him before they started walking to their destination. Izuku looked a bit embarrassed, but Sora figured that Inko said something to her kid that made him that way. Boku no Hero Academia Ostue Corridors. Sora was a bit excited to start this new adventure. Even though school would normally be considered boring, the school he was going to was made to train the best heroes and top-tier support classmen. It wasn't going to be just pen and paper every day, a few laps around a field once a week, wash, rinse, repeat for the whole year. This would be a lot more than that. He and Izuku both jogged their way to the places they needed to go. Sora opted to make it a race every time, but Midoriya politely refused, stating that Sora would easily win, despite Sora retorting with the two of them not knowing that unless they raced and found out. Regardless, Izuku buckled down on his refusals, and Sora respected his friend's decision. They made good time anyway, and got to the entrance about half an hour before class starts. Time to start our heroes' journeys. Sora said, proudly looking at the entrance to UA. Yeah. Izuku agreed, nodding and taking the first step forward, Sora following behind him. The two walked together and took in their surroundings. They were both here before, but they were more focused on the exams, rather than looking around. Now that they'll be coming here every day, it would be best to get a layout of where they need to go. It wasn't hard to figure out. The hero course classes were upstairs, the support on ground level, other classes elsewhere, the cafeteria also on ground level, as well as the nurse, principal and dean's offices. The two were right on time when getting to the hero course classrooms when Sora asked the question. Hey. I forgot to ask. What classroom are you assigned to? Oh. Izuku clammed up, shortly responding. I was assigned to class 1A. Really? Sora replied, sounding very cheerful. Me too. We're classmates Izuku. Izuku perked up from that response. Wait, are you serious? Yeah. Sora said. That's awesome. It really is. Izuku agreed, smiling at the fact that he and Sora would be in the same classroom. At least he had a friend that he could talk to in there. But don't let that stop you from making new friends. Sora started. It won't stop me. You right. Izuku replied. Silence. They stopped at the door to class 1A and noticed the size. Man, this thing is huge, Izuku stated. Are there giants here? They probably thought about that when making the door. Sora answered. The most promising students in the country are waiting behind this door. Izuku commented. And 2 more are about to go through them. Sora added. Though that comment did help Izuku a little bit, he still couldn't help but wonder if 2 specific people were also in the class. In his head, he hoped that they were in separate classes, but then when they opened the door. Take your feet off of that desk now. A familiar voice said. Huh? Another one snarkily replied. It's the first day, and you're already disrespecting this academy by scuffing school property, you cretin. The first voice explained. You're kidding me, right? The other guy retorted. Your old school put a stick up your ass, or were you born with it? Izuku looked not so pleased, and Sora could see why. Though he only saw childhood photos of this friend of Izuku's, he figured that this guy was the infamous Katsuki Bakugo that he heard about from Inko. He recognized the other guy from the entrance exams, mainly for calling out Izuku for his mumbling and ridiculing him about it. Sora figured that Izuku wouldn't take it personally, but maybe he had a few other run-ins with this guy that Sora didn't know about. Boku no Hero Academia Ostamunkase. Sora decided to go in first, letting Izuku walk behind him. Let's start over, the guy with glasses said, regaining his composure, as if trying to make a first impression for Sora, who he saw walk in. I'm Tenya Ida, from the Same Private Academy. Same ha. Kakasuki said, not changing his attitude in the slightest. So you must think you're better than me. I'm gonna have fun tearing you a new one. Sora could already tell how this friendship was even a thing. This guy seemed to have gotten praised a lot as a kid, and Izuku was probably one of the kids who did praise him. He only knew this from what Inko said, but it was still obvious, considering that he didn't seem to show much respect for anything or anyone here. There was no other way this guy would have even gotten friends, if you could even call them that. He would threaten me? Tenya responded, very shocked at the response that this guy gave him for trying to correct his actions. Your own classmate. Are you sure you're in the right place? The two then turned to see Sora walk in, not noticing Izuku behind him. The rest of the class also turned their heads. Izuku was almost frozen in place, but Sora stepped in, finding an empty seat, but not walking over to it yet, instead stepping to the side to let the class see Izuku, not leaving his side, as to make sure he's still comfortable. Hi. Izuku nervously said, trying to sound positive, earning a proud look from Sora. Good morning. Tenya greeted the two, walking over in a running man fashion, introducing himself to the two, while Izuku tried to play it cool. Why yeah, I know. He sheepishly replied, still trying to keep his cool. I'm Izuku Midoriya. It's super nice to meet you. Sora was about to speak, but then Iida spoke before he could get the chance. Midoriya. He started. You realized that there was something more to the practical exam, didn't you? Izuku had a slightly confused face from that question. You must be very perceptive. Tenya praised. And I completely misjudged you. I admit, as a student, you are far superior to me. While Midoriya was just thinking about how wrong that was, Sora smiled. Hey, I recognize that messed up hair. Another voice said from behind the two. Falling boy. Izuku turned around, very shocked to see this girl. Sora recognized her as the girl who stopped Izuku from tripping back before the written exams the moment she said that nickname. While the girl was talking about how amazing Izuku was during the practical and how he managed to pass, Midoriya was looking very red and was trying to thank the girl for apparently talking to the staff, which made her question how he knew about that, making Izuku need to explain how he knew it. Which just made Sora laugh for a second. Wow Izuku. Sora complimented. In less than a minute you already gained 2 friends. Nice job. Izuku was still trying to keep whatever little cool he had left while the girl was talking about meeting everyone, letting Iida's attention be taken off of him and onto Sora. Oh, my apologies. Tenya said. I forgot that you were here. It's nice to meet you as well. What is your name? My name is Sora. The Keyblade wielder replied, offering his hand out to Tenya. It's nice to meet you too. I hope we can be good friends. Tenya smiled and firmly grasped Sora's hand, politely shaking it without too much force. I agree. Let's work hard and become great friends. If you're just here to make friends then you can pack up your stuff now. A voice came from lower to the ground and outside the classroom. Play Boku no Hero Academia asked Professor Aizawa theme. The 4 of them then look outside the door and saw a guy in a sleeping bag. While Izuku, Tenya and the girl were all wondering what that guy was, not knowing it was a sleeping bag, Sora was just wondering why he was in one. Welcome to UA's hero course. The guy said, fidgeting around his sleeping bag and unzipping it slightly, letting a juice pack pop out of where he unzipped that he then proceeded to drink. Sora was just questioning the whole sleeping bag thing. Did he slither here? Did he put it on just to mess with them? What else does he have under his sleeping bag? Is he going to get out of it? Why the sleeping bag? The man then got up and unzipped from the sleeping bag, speaking as he did so. It took 8 seconds before you all shut up. That's not gonna work. He critiqued. Time is precious. Rational students would understand that. While Sora was going to say something back, he realized that this guy wasn't wearing the school uniform and he was much older than the 15-year-old realized. This guy was probably the homeroom teacher. He then very tiredly introduced himself to the class. Hello, I'm Shada Aizawa. He stated. Your teacher. Yep. Sora guessed right, but looking at Izuku, he looked surprised, as well as the other 2. Sora took no time at all and then said out loud to the other 3. We should probably find our seats. No need. Aizawa responded, pulling another set of clothes out of the bag. Put these on and head outside. Silence. Though confused at first, the 4 of them, as well as the rest of the class following suit to the locker rooms and got into the new set of clothes, which Sora could only guess was a PE uniform because they were heading outside with them. The uniform itself was also a good fit, but Sora couldn't admire the details about it. Instead he just put it on, found a spot to put Kairi's good luck charm on the pants, kept the necklace on, put the other charms in his back pocket. And then went outside with the other students. Most of them were wondering what was even going on, and Sora was just wondering if this is how schools work in this world. Alright, let's get to the point. Aizawa started. We're doing a quirk assessment test today. What? Everyone except Sora responded. A quirk assessment test. But orientation. The girl from earlier spoke up. We're gonna miss it. If you really want to make the big leagues, you can't waste time on pointless ceremonies. Azawa explained. Here at UA we're not tethered to traditions. That means I get to run my class however I see fit. Everyone in the class seemed a bit uncomfortable, but Sora was just starting to understand the system here. There was no system. Whoever the teacher was, the classmates had to follow their rules. It was a very strange way of making people learn, but that also proved to Sora's earlier point that this wasn't going to be wash, rinse, repeat, so he was okay with it as long as it wasn't too extreme. You've been taking standardized tests most of your lives. Azawa continued. But you never got to use your quirks in physical exams before. The country is still trying to pretend we're all created equal by not letting those with the most power excel. It's not rational. One day the Ministry of Education will learn. He then turned his attention to Kitsuki. Bakugo, you managed to get the most points on the entrance exam. What was your farthest distance throw with a softball when you were in junior high? 67 meters I think. Kitsuki replied. Right. Azawa commented, try doing it with your quirk. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Runaway Battle. Kitsuki was in position and had the ball in his hand. Anything goes, just stay in the circle. Azawa instructed. Go on. You're wasting our time. Kitsuki got himself ready, looking rather calm when he said, alright man you asked for it. He prepared to throw and then when he released the ball, he added an explosion from his palms, sending the ball flying. Making Izuku look a bit broken, only for Sora to poke the boy's face and snap Izuku out of it. All of you need to know your maximum capabilities. Azawa explained. It's the most rational way of figuring out your potential as a pro hero. He held up the result to show 705.2 meters as the distance. While some were amazed by the result that Kitsuki made, others wanted to have a go at it, getting excited about using their quirks as much as they want. Then Azawa said something, making sure everyone pays attention to what he had to say. So this looks fun huh? He asked, sounding disappointed. You have 3 years here to become a hero. You think it's all gonna be games and playtime? He then smirked. Idiots. Today you'll compete in 8 physical tests to gauge your potential. Whoever comes in last has none and will be expelled immediately. That shocked everyone, including Sora. This was a bit extreme. He noticed Izuku grab his wrist and look very stressed out. Sora wanted to comfort him, but Azawa spoke again, glaring at Sora while letting his hair up. And anyone who holds back on purpose will be expelled, regardless of what position you come in. He continued. Like I said, I get to decide how this class runs, understand? If that's a problem you can head home right now. Silence. This guy absolutely saw what Sora did on the test if he made that last point while looking at the Keyblade wielder. That was specifically said for Sora, so that this guy could see what he would really do and not be able to help anyone, regardless of whether or not he tried. You can't send one of us home. The girl from earlier spoke up. I mean, we just got here. Even if it wasn't the first day, that isn't fair. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost My Hero Academia. Oh, and you think natural disasters are? He cruelly retorted to them. Or power-hungry villains, Or catastrophic accidents that wipe out whole cities. No. The world is full of unfairness. It's a hero's job to try and combat that unfairness. Sora knew where this guy was coming from. He experienced it back on the Destin Islands when the Heartless first attacked and consumed the world, letting it fall to darkness. Even though he got it back, he still understood the point. These things are unpredictable, sometimes irreversible, like with Riku and his connections to the darkness being permanent. Even though it doesn't affect Riku anymore, it still wasn't his friend's choice to make at the start. If you want to be a pro, then you're gonna have to push yourself to the brink. Azawa continued. For the next 3 years, UA will throw one terrible hardship after another at you. So go beyond. Plus ultra style. He gestured the students to step up. Show me it's no mistake that you're here. Then you got a bottle of water and took a sip, getting himself fueled up. Kitsuki was stretching his arm, getting pumped. The girl from before was getting mentally prepared and Izuku was still nervous as ever. Sora then spoke, saying this mainly to the teacher, but to also boost the students' morale. We'll show you that we all have what it takes to be a hero. Sora confidently spoke, as if to challenge Azawa's threat. You'll be so amazed that even last place will be above the current standards. Show me with your actions, not your words. Azawa said, taking that as a challenge. Let the games begin. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost UA session. First up was the 50-meter dash. Everyone else went in pairs, but Sora was singled out due to the odd number. He did his dash by himself. Well, it was less of a dash and more of an instant use of flow motion to get past the camera in a record time of 0.93 seconds. Next was grip strength. Thanks to Sora's constant amount of lifting, cutting, throwing, and all around doing whatever he had to do with heavy things, he got a grip strength of 510.8 kilograms of force. Next was the standing long jump, which he didn't even need the flow motion for, as he just jumped and did an air dash that cleared the sandbox. He noticed that Izuku didn't make it and it was starting to worry him. He wanted to talk to the kid, but he most likely would get in trouble, so he just hoped that Midoriya would be okay. If push comes to shove then, no. Izuku will make it. Sora himself said that they would all go past his standards. He knows that Izuku has what it takes, and he knows that Izuku will prove it. Next was repeated side steps. Sora lost count of how many he did, but kept going regardless, and eventually it was shown that he did 207 in the time he was given. Other students did better, like that purple ball-haired guy, the pink-skinned girl and a few others. Next the ball throw. Sora was up before Izuku, and the way he did it in hindsight probably shouldn't have counted, but it did, so whatever. He summoned his kingdom key, tossed the ball up, and then struck the softball like he was playing the sport it was used for. It went flying and the distance was 612.9 meters before it hit the ground. If it was softball, it would have been a home run, but it wasn't, and he was still beaten by Kitsuki with his 705.2 meters and the other girl who just let it float forever, making it infinite. Now it was Izuku's turn to throw. Sora could tell that he was nervous and wanted to cheer him on, but not only would that draw attention to Izuku, making him lose even more of his confidence, but that would also get eyes on him, and that would just make things worse for the both of them. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostyuseron. He was gearing up for the throw, and it looked like he was getting ready to feel some serious pain. He flinched, got ready, his veins started to glow as he threw the ball, but nothing happened. Silence. The distance was 46 meters, but Izuku looked like he was going crazy. What gives? Izuku mumbled. I was trying to use it just now. I erased your quirk. Aizawa said, his eyes glowing red, hair standing up, and scarf now floating around him as he spoke. The judges for this exam were not rational enough. Someone like you should never be allowed to enroll at this school. That made Sora grit his teeth. He was angry at that last sentence. He was going to say something, but Izuku spoke up first. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostret incoming. Wait, you did what to my? He stopped and noticed the attire's details. Those goggles, I know you. You can look at someone and cancel out their powers. The erasure hero, Eraserhead. While the others were commenting on who this guy was, Sora was just trying to hold himself back from speaking up against Aizawa. He didn't care how much this was known, no one should just tell someone that they can't do anything if they work for it. This guy didn't see half of the hard work that Izuku put in to get here. Sora did, and unless you know what they have been through, then you have no right to say what they can and can't do. You're not ready. Aizawa scolded. You don't have control over your power. That comment helped Sora calm down a small bit, but not by much. It's a valid reason, but at least start with that and maybe give him pointers on who to talk to about it instead of belittling him. Were you planning to break your bones again? Aizawa implied. Counting on someone else to save your useless body? No, that's not what I was trying to do. Izuku started before getting grabbed by the scarf and violently pulled directly in front of Aizawa's face. No matter what your intentions are, you would be nothing more than a liability in battle. Aizawa continued. You have the same reckless passion as another overzealous hero I know. One who saved 1,000 people by himself and became a legend. But even with that drive, you're worthless if you can only throw a single punch before breaking down. Sora was getting even more annoyed with what he was saying with every word that came out. Sorry Midoriya. Aizawa pressed on. With your power, there's no way you can become a hero. Silence. That made Sora lose some of his composure, and he had his fists clenched so hard that he could feel his fingers about to dig into his hand. He had so much that he wanted to say to this guy, but had to keep himself level-headed, or else, both he and Izuku would be out of here. I've returned your impractical quirk. Aizawa said. Take your final throw. Hurry, get it over with. The others didn't hear what Aizawa said, but the girl noticed how angry Sora was. Are you okay? She asked. Yeah. Sora said, holding on to what little cool he had left, unclenching his hands in the process. For now. I've only got one shot at nailing this, so what am I gonna do? Izuku quietly asked himself. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostyuseron. Sora had heard that, and he felt like he had to do something. He said that he'd make sure that Izuku would make it in UA. He made that promise to Inko. He wasn't going to break it. He clenched his fists again, took a deep breath, and then he did something that he didn't regret at all. You can do it, Izuku. He yelled out at the top of his lungs, making everyone jump and look at him. Show this sleepy jerk who's boss. Wake him up and show him you have what it takes to be a hero. Sora noticed that all eyes were on him, but he didn't care. He said what he needed to say. Aizawa was annoyed at that outburst, but he then turned his direction to Izuku once more, who looked even more determined than before. He geared up, got ready and then threw the ball with all the force he could, using his quirk to make it go flying just as far as Katsuki's. 705.3 meters. Mr. Aizawa. Izuku spoke up, making the teacher look at him to see his injury. Looking at the damage, all he did was break one finger. He looked at Aizawa, staring with confidence and some pain. You see? Izuku said, looking like he just spat in Aizawa's insults and smeared it in his face. I'm still standing. This caused Aizawa to smile. This kid. Silence. Everyone had their own critique. Some people praised the throw, others noted how it cost his finger to do. Sora just cheered Izuku again, complimenting on how he showed Aizawa what for. Sora also noticed that Katsuki was shocked at what they just saw. He also noticed that Katsuki was starting to fire up his palms, and he then saw him start to run. Play KHBBS OST Extreme Encounters. Hey! Katsuki yelled out, charging towards Izuku. Deku, you bastard. Tell me how you did that or you're dead. Sora wasted no time and used his Flamotion to blitz himself to Katsuki and push him off balance, making the explosive kid almost fall to the ground. Back off. Sora said, getting in front of Izuku and extending his arms, keeping Midoriya behind him. Katsuki recovered with an explosion and landed right in front of Sora, staring him down. Move its spiky hair or you'll be even more dead than he is. Bakugo demanded, getting ready for a fight. Try me temper tantrum. Sora responded, getting ready to beat this bully to the ground. Katsuki started to run to the two, but was then grabbed by Aizawa's scarf and was stopped in place. Silence. Why the hell is your damn scarf so strong? Katsuki struggled to speak as he still tried to get to Sora and Izuku. Because it's a capture weapon made out of carbon fiber and a special metal alloy. Aizawa stated, now looking at Sora. Stand down. The both of you. It would be wise to avoid making me use my quirk so much. It gives me serious dry eye. The rest of the class still thought it was amazing, but Sora kept his guard up until Katsuki backed down. When he finally stopped resisting, Aizawa let him go. Sora walked with Izuku to make sure that Katsuki wouldn't try anything with Midoriya. Play KHBBS OST Holly Holly. Next test was the sit-ups, which Sora couldn't be properly calculated because he was stopped after 500 and Aizawa just put 500 for the results to move on. During these last tests though, Sora was keeping an eye on Izuku, both out of concern for his well-being from the injury and out of self-appointed necessity because he didn't know if Katsuki was going to try anything. Next, the seated toe touch. This one, he did well, mainly because of all the stuff he did with flips and tricks that involved him curling up into a ball, making him flexible enough to be above average, but not too special, as the guy with multiple limbs and the frog girl beat his score by a bit. Lastly was the long distance run, which he scored first place because he just didn't get tired at all. The guy runs everywhere he goes, and that doesn't include all of the weight that he sometimes has to carry, with items, armor, equipment, doing that on walls both vertically and horizontally, and doing it all in the intense desert heat of Agrabah or the frozen mountains of Arendelle. Yeah. He was going to be fine. Silence. Alright, time to give you your results. Aizawa lazily said. I've ranked you all from best to worst. You should probably have a good idea of your standing already. I'll just pull up the whole list. It's not worth going over each individual score. He pulled up the list and gave the students about 10 seconds to see it. The results are: Momoyoi Rozu first. Sora Na second. Shoto Todoroki third. Katsuki Bakugo fourth. Tenya Ida fifth. Fumikage Tokoyami sixth. Izo Shoji seventh. Bashirao Ajiro eighth. Najiro Kirishima ninth. Mina Ishido 10th. Ichako Uraraka 11th. Koji Koda 12th. Bakito Sato 13th. Sayu Asui 14th. Yuga Aoyama 15th. Pantasiro 16th. Enki Kaminari 17th. Ioka Jiro 18th. Toru Hagakure 19th. Minoru Mineta 20th. Izuku Midoriya 21st. Play KHBBS OST Shaded Truths. Each student had their own thoughts going through their minds, but all of them except one knew that they were safe. The one who was ready for the worst was Izuku, as he was in last place, meaning that he was going to be expelled. And Aizawa started. I'll take Izuku's place. Sora said, making the students look at him like he was crazy. Aizawa stopped in his tracks and stared at Sora, shocked and almost angry at what he just heard. What did you just say? He said in a very threatening tone. I said I'd take Izuku's place. Sora repeated, stepping up to Aizawa and looking him dead in the eye as he said it. The entire class was silent and Izuku ran over to Sora, getting in front of the Keyblade wielder. He tried to say something, but Aizawa used his scarf and moved the broken bone boy to the side, covering Izuku's mouth so the boy couldn't speak. You'd willingly throw your chance at being a hero away for someone who has zero potential. Aizawa questioned Sora, having his quirk activated to make sure that the kid wouldn't do anything stupid. Izuku has plenty of potential. Sora said, not backing down in the slightest. Or did you forget that he called your judgment of his quirk out with his softball throw? The students were all shocked at Sora for saying that. So much so that Tenya ended up commenting on Sora's actions. "You're completely insane," he said. Offering to take a student's place when said student is faced with expulsion and then insulting the teacher's methods is going to not only end your career as a hero, but your social life as you know it. Stop this act of harassment before you get yourself in any more trouble. Sora didn't back down, still looking at Aizawa as he said, heroes don't step on their comrades to get to their goals. That shut Iida up, as well as silence anyone else who wanted to say anything. Aizawa stepped forward looking down at Sora as he stood tall right in front of the kid. Sora didn't back down, clenching his fists and keeping his stare at Aizawa. The area was very tense. Not only was the second best student overall volunteering to be expelled, but he even challenged the teacher's opinion on last place's performance, calling him out for his lapse in judgment. The stare kept going for a while, the students frozen in place and Izuku struggling to get free and try to help his friend, but then, he was released. Aizawa closed his eyes. Silence. If you didn't interrupt me before, Aizawa started. I was going to say that I lied about the expulsion. Play Boku no Hero Academia asked Professor Aizawa theme. What? Everyone except Momo said in unison. It was the most effective way to get the best results. Aizawa explained. But when Sora said that he was offering to take Midoriya's place, I decided to test him and see if he would back down. If he did, then I would have expelled him. The rest of the class looked at Sora like he was crazy and almost all of them asked why he did that. Sora just said that it was the right thing to do and that he followed his heart. He didn't regret it and would have done it for anyone else. That's it. We're done for the day. Aizawa spoke. Pick up a syllabus in the classroom. Read it over before tomorrow morning. He finished as he walked to Izuku, handing him a paper. Midoriya. Take this and go have the old lady fix you up. Things are gonna be tougher tomorrow when your actual training begins. Make sure you're prepared. Play KHBBS asked innocent times. After Sora took Midoriya to the nurse's office, he grabbed 2 syllabuses and gave one to Izuku. He stuck with his friend for a good portion of the day. Tenya ended up approaching them and placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder, letting Midoriya know that he was requesting his attention. Ah hey there Iida. Izuku said, a bit surprised. How's the broken finger doing? Tenya asked. Oh. It's doing fine thanks to recovery girl. Midoriya responded, a bit more calm now. The three of them walked together as Iida spoke up. I was a bit concerned by Mr. Aizawa's approach to class. He started. But I trust the school's judgment. UA is the top program. Even so lying is downright immoral. Sora and Izuku smiled at this. Iida wasn't a bad guy. He just took things like school very seriously. A familiar female voice spoke out. Wait up you three. Are you going to the station? I'll join you guys. It was of course the very same bubbly girl from before. She seems to really like hanging out with at least Izuku. Maybe from the praise she gave him earlier, he did something to amaze her. Maybe he saved her. Sora didn't know, but he also didn't mind. You're the Infinity Girl. Tenya commented. I'm Ichako Uraraka. She said while nodding to confirm Iida's statement about her score on the softball throw. Let's see. Your name is Tenya Iida, she then looked at Sora. You're Sora I think. You think correctly Ichako. Sora said. Nice to meet you. Likewise. She happily said. She then looked at Izuku. And your name is Deku right? Midoriya. Deku? Izuku questioned, looking a bit shocked. Yeah. Uraraka confirmed. Isn't that what Bakugo called you? She was right. Katsuki called him Deku. But Sora didn't know why. Yeah. What gives? Sora asked. Would he call you that and not your real name? Izuku nervously started. Deku's what Kaken calls me to make fun of me. Well that sounds sportsmanlike. Tenya sarcastically commented of Katsuki's choice of name for Izuku. Oh I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. Ichako apologized. But you know what I like Deku. I think it would make a great hero name, plus I think it sounds kinda cute. Play Boku no Hero Academia asked bright and cheerful. That made Izuku turn more red than the chili peppers Sora used to cook with back at the bistro in Twilight Town. Oh is that how it is? Izuku said quickly, almost accepting it as his new name. Just like that. Iida pointed out. Weren't you saying that it was an insult? Hey. Words can have multiple meanings. Like how aloha means hello and goodbye in Hawaiian. Sora commented, silently thanking Stitch in the back of his head for that fun fact. While you do bring up a valid point, it still stands to question the sudden acceptance of that name. Tenya responded. Izuku was covering his face, getting even more red, and Ichako was just confused. Regardless, the four of them decided to walk with each other to the station. It was fun, and even though Sora and Izuku both were biting bullets on the first day, it was still a pretty good success, at least to Sora it was. Well, here we go. We now start the school off with a bang. Sora's already made an enemy of Katsuki, friends with Tenya and Ichako, and he's made quite the first impression on the class. I'm pretty sure this is how Sora would act, based on all of the stuff I've seen him do in the games, and where he hasn't grown in certain departments. Such as him still being a bad judge of character, based on first meetings, but sticking with Izuku might help our Keyblade wielder in the future. Also, if you wonder why Aizawa didn't stop Sora when he went to protect Izuku from Katsuki. He was just too slow on the activation. He can still cancel out Sora's magic and Flamotion. He just can't make Sora unsummon the Keyblade. Hope you guys enjoyed this long chapter, and until I decide to upload again. Chapter 7. This is an author's note that hopefully explains the issue that most people have with last chapter. Namely, the fact that I said that Aizawa can nullify Sora's abilities. I did a lousy job explaining it, and I am going to explain my reasoning for it now. The first reason is to give Aizawa some sense of control early on. Sora will not like Aizawa's teaching method early on, and if he can't be controlled, then what is to stop him from blowing his cover? Secondly, this has happened before in two different Kingdom Hearts games. The first is Chain of Memories. Whether or not it was Namin who made Sora forget all his spells, or Marluxia's explanation about Castle Oblivion, having the ability to get rid of your abilities and need to be collected as cards in order to progress in the castle, is debatable, but either way. Someone or something had a natural ability that nerfed Sora. The second and much more definitive time that it happened was in Kingdom Hearts 2. During the first visit to the underworld, Sora was weakened and restricted in what he could do. He couldn't use his drive forms and was unable to harm Hades in any way without Hercules. It was the natural law of the underworld. The only way he could get around this was to use an item that Demyx had stolen, who was also affected by the underworld. Because he had to use the stone to get his sitter. And only then was Sora able to use his abilities. I went with the idea that the world of MHA's natural law would be that Sora's magic and Flamotion would count as his quirk and could be nullified by Aizawa. His Keyblade isn't affected by it, and he can still bash enemies with it, he just can't use anything that requires a gauge in his games. So no situation commands, forms, advanced spells act, magic Flamotion or shot locks. I made this note at the beginning as a method of telling you my way of seeing how this could work in the MHA and KH canon, based on what evidence I have here. It doesn't matter to me if you accept it or not. I will still respect your opinion either way. Okay. Hope you enjoy this chapter. Chapter 7. Play Boku no Hero Academia Os Dogamagi. It was the next day and the hero curriculum was now underway. The beginning of the day seemed to be homeroom, taught by Aizawa, who didn't really teach. He more or less just passed papers and then huddled up in his sleeping bag. It was weird but acceptable, at least for Sora. Then the core classes were up next. First in the core classes was English, which was taught by Present Mick, who tried to hype up the subject, but only Izuku and Iida were in high spirits. Everyone else was pretty bored with these classes. Sora understood why most of the students here would be bored, himself included. But he paid attention and did his best. The only issue is that Mick would sometimes use street slang, something Sora could not figure out at all. There was also modern literature, taught by a guy whose hero name is Cementus. He didn't really hype up the subject, but when someone dozed off, he would just bop their head with whatever book was in his hands and politely ask them to pay attention. Sora would make sure that he wasn't one of those people. Other than that, the guy seemed rather nice and good-spirited. Next was Modern Hero Art and History, taught by Midnight, a hero who could not be displaying any more sex appeal if she tried. She didn't even hide it either. It made the gray-haired looking guy drool a lake on his desk and a few other guys just stare at her and not the board itself. Sora wasn't really affected by her features and just tried to focus on the subject, but it was sometimes weird whenever she glared towards him in a well-certain way. In any case, Sora just did his best to ignore the appeal that was being thrown at the entire male side of the class and actually take notes. Next, mathematics. A hero named Ectoplasm was the teacher this time, and he was more direct with his teaching methods. He'd pick a random student, regardless of whether or not they wanted to, and have said student answer whatever mathematical equation that was on the board within a certain amount of time. Sora wasn't good with complex equations at all and made a mental note to ask Izuku to tutor him when they get home. After the classes were done, lunch would be served in the cafeteria, obviously. The food was pretty cheap, but since Sora only had the pouch of money that he was pretty sure it wouldn't be accepted, he brought a snack that would have to make do. He also met the chef. The guy whose hero name is Lunch Rush. Sora wondered how this guy was a hero, but then again, Little Chef's cooking has saved his life more than a few times, so maybe this guy's cooking is like that. Silence. After those were over with, it was finally time for foundational hero studies. Sora and the rest of the class were seated as usual, waiting for whoever the next hero was gonna be teaching them. Sora was curious about two separate things. The first being who their teacher is going to be and what this person is like. The second was how Toshinori was doing. It had been a while since he'd seen the hero and Sora heard from Izuku that he was going to be a teacher here, but the two hadn't seen each other since Izuku's last day cleaning the beach. "I am here," announced an all too familiar voice. Coming through the door like a hero. "Boku no Hero Academia asked I've come." Well, that answered Sora's questions. While everyone else was fawning over him and admiring the Silver Age costume that All Might was sporting on, Sora was just glad to see his friend being his usual high-spirited self. "Welcome to the most important class at UA High." All Might started. "Think of it as Heroing 101. Here you will learn the basics of being a pro. And what it means to fight in the name of good." He then struck a pose, earning Sora a silent chuff of amusement. "Let's get into it." He then spun around and held up a card that had battle written on it. "Today's lesson will pull no punches. Training," Katsuki said, looking like a lion who's been let out of its cage to go for a hunt. "Real combat," Izuku said, looking both surprised and a bit nervous. "But one of the keys of being a hero is," All Might started, swiftly pointing at a wall. "Looking good." The wall then started to shift and numbered suitcases were brought into view. "These were designed for you, based on your quirk registration forms and the requests you sent in before school started." Everyone except the girl in front of Sora, named Momo, the guy next to her with two different hair colors split down the middle, named Shoto, and Iida, were cheering at the cases. Sora saw his number and was just hoping that he got what he requested. A simple patch-up, nothing extra, nothing flashy, nothing changed. He was comfortable with the clothes that he used on his most recent adventure, and they were perfect for fighting in, as he fought in them the entire time. "Get yourselves suited up," All Might instructed. "And then meet me at training ground beta." "Yes, sir," the entire class said in unison. With that, the entire class got the suitcase with their number on it and went to the locker rooms to change. Sora took his costume out and checked for anything that was out of the ordinary. The only thing was a note. "You're lucky that I got to the suit first, otherwise that crazy pink-haired lady would have messed it all up XXXX. You can thank me by meeting me in the development studio after your classes XXXX. Trust me, you're gonna want to see me Sora XXXX. There was a four-letter word that was scribbled out at the end of every sentence that Sora couldn't make out. That was just eerie, seeing a note that tells him to meet some random person in the development studio after school, but what could he do? It would be rude to not go, and whoever this guy is, it seemed like they knew something about the suit. He made a mental note to do that after school. Boku no Hero Academia asked Hero A. Sora, along with the rest of the students, managed to all finish getting into their attire and walk together to training ground beta. Everyone had their own style, but some were more unique than others. Itsuki looked like a walking bag of grenades. The fact that his gauntlets were giant grenades just made him look more like a bombing expert, ready to blow you up, rather than a hero, ready to save you. The Shoto guy covered his left side in his eyes and wore all white, with the only thing on his left being uncovered is a red spot that was probably a scope for his left eye to see through. It was a very weird setup, but Sora didn't question it. Iida looked like a knight, packed with engine turbines behind his shoulders and his legs having his natural engines armored up. Sora wondered how Tenya was going to move, but whatever. It looked better than that guy with actual knight's armor. At least to Sora, it did. The Chaco looked like a skin-tight space girl. It fit with her quirk, which was literally zero gravity, but she looked a bit uncomfortable. Maybe it was too tight for her to wear, or pinched in the wrong places. Hopefully it wouldn't affect her too much. The last one was Izuku, who just looked ridiculous with a hood. He looked like an overgrown, underfed rabbit. He got what Izuku was trying to do, mimicking the hair and smile of All Might, but it looked so weird. Sora wasn't going to say anything though, cause it was his friend's choice, and if that's what he wanted, then he can keep it. They say the clothes make the pros, ladies and gentlemen. All Might started, while keeping the superhero pose he had. And behold, you are the proof. Take this to heart. From now on you are all heroes in training. All Might huffed in amusement before continuing. This is getting me all revved up. You look so cool. Sora was proud of himself. He knew that Yagi was just saying these things as a teacher, but it was still nice to hear a compliment from the #1 hero of this world, even if it's something minor like looking cool. Now All Might continued. Shall we get started, you bunch of newbies? Silence. Sora was next to Izuku, and the two of them noticed Ochako walking up to them. Hey you two. She greeted the two. I like your costumes, not too flashy you know. I should have been more specific about what I wanted. This bodysuit is skin tight. Not really my style. Sora looked over to Izuku, who was trying to control himself. Sora put his arm around him and just let out a small laugh. Well, the both of us just wanted something that we normally wore, patched up into hero suits. Really? Uraraka pondered. That's smart. I wish I thought of that. Hey, you still look great. Sora complimented. You look like you're ready to send the villain sky high. Thanks Sora. She replied, with a small giggle at the joke. I love this school. Mumbled the grape-haired guy, who Sora figured out was named Minoru Mineta earlier in class during roll call. Sora just ignored that remark. He knew what that guy was referring to, and he was not going to acknowledge it in any way. Instead, he was just going to focus on the class and keeping Midoriya's head on straight around Ochako. Sora then noticed All Might trying to hold in his laughter. Embarrassment. Whatever he was feeling towards Izuku's costume as he noticed the exact same details that Sora did. Now that you're ready, it's time for combat training. All Might announced. Sir. Iida raised his hand. This is the fake city from our entrance exam. Does that mean we'll be conducting urban battles again? Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostue session. Not quite. All Might answered. I'm going to move you 2 steps ahead. Most of the villain fights you see on the news take place outside, however, statistically speaking, run-ins with the most dastardly evildoers take place indoors. Think about it. Backroom deals, home invasions, secret underground lairs. Truly intelligent criminals stay hidden in the shadows. Sora understood that, as he literally fought indoors or in closed spaces half of the time. So he could see how this would be the more likely of encounters, and they would need to prepare the students for that. For this training exercise, you'll be split into teams of good guys and bad guys, and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. All Might explained. Isn't this a little advanced? The frog girl that Sora remembered being called Sayu asked. The best training is what you get on the battlefield. All Might remarked. But remember, you can't just punch a robot this time. You're dealing with actual people now. Then came the questions. Sir, will you be deciding the one who wins? Momo asked. How much can we hurt the other team? Katsuki asked. Do we need to worry about the losers getting expelled like earlier? Ochako asked. Will you be splitting us up based on chance or comparative skill? Iida asked. The over-the-top kid named Aoyama asked how his cape looked. I wasn't finished talking. All Might grumbled. Sora felt kinda bad, but the questions were valid, except the last one. That last question did not need to be answered. Listen up. All Might instructed while pulling out a small script. The situation is this. The villains have hidden a nuclear missile somewhere in their hideout. The heroes must try to foil their plans. To do that, the good guys either have to catch the evildoers or recover the weapon. Likewise, the bad guys succeed if they either protect their payload or capture the heroes. All Might then pulled out a box that said lots. Time's limited and we'll choose teams by drawing lots. Isn't there a better way? Iida asked. Think about it. Izuku interjected. Pros often have to team up with heroes from other agencies on the spot, so maybe that's the reason why we're seeing that here. Yes, I see. Tenya acknowledged. Life is a random series of events. Excuse my rudeness. He bowed in respect. No sweat. All Might turned around and rose his fist into the air. Let's draw. Team A is Izuku and Ochako. Team B is Shoto and Mizo. Team C is Momo and Minoru. Team D is Katsuki and Tenya. Team E is Mina and Yuga. Team F is Koji and Rakido. Team G is Denki and Kyoka. Team H is Tsuyu and Fumikichi. Team I is Toru and Masharao. Team J is Ejiro and Hanta. And Sora is the odd one out again. Sir? The red-haired guy that was called Kirishima pointed out. We have an extra person. Is there going to be a team of 3, or is he going to sit out? Fear not, young Kirishima. All Might reassured. His team will be based upon the results of all of your battles. Depending on what happens during your combat practice, you could be selected to do it one more time, with Sora as a new contender. Silence. The logic behind that seemed weird to the class, but they went with it. I declare that the first teams to fight will be these guys. All Might declared, holding D for the villains and A for the heroes. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostred incoming. Sora was already worried for Izuku, because he was fighting Katsuki's team, of all the teams. The two boys looked just as surprised, but Bakugo looked more pleasantly surprised, while Midoriya looked terrified. Unlike at the quirk assessment test, Sora couldn't step in this time. Team A will be the heroes. Team D will be the villains. All Might announced. Everyone else can head to the monetary room to watch. Yes, sir. Everyone said in unison once again. Izuku looked like he was getting ready for a beating, and Sora didn't like that at all. He also noticed that Katsuki was glaring at Midoriya like he was already getting ready to attack, making Izuku look even more afraid. He saw Midoriya start to tremble before clenching his fist, looking up and putting the fear he had to the side. Sora was proud of his friend, he was starting to show a bit more confidence in himself, and that was something that Izuku needed, big time. He showed this newfound courage by returning a glance back at Katsuki, making him slightly reel back in shock. It looked like Explosion Boy over there had never seen this kind of thing from Deku at all. Bakugo growled slightly, feeling threatened by this action, and Sora smirked outside of both of their views. Attaboy Izuku. Sora thought to himself. Show him that you're not just target practice anymore. With that, they walked with the crowd to where they were going, except Teams D and A. Bad guys, you can get set up. All Might instructed. In 5 minutes, the good guys will be let loose and the battle will start. Yes sir. The two teams said at once. Young Iida, young Bakugo. All Might called the two. The key to being successful in this challenge is to embody villainy. Think from the perspective of an evildoer. Got it? Tenya responded. If things go too far, I'll step in. All Might assured them. Understood. Iida responded, while Bakugo simply growled. Sora and the rest of the students were in the monetary room, waiting and watching. They can see everything they do. No detail was going to be missed at all. They see Iida walking over to the bomb. Even though this is training, it pains me to be aligned with criminal behavior. Tenya said. So this is the weapon we must protect. Fake of course. Iida knocked on it a few times, revealing that it was hollow on the inside. Hey. Katsuki spoke up, getting Iida's attention. Do you really think Deku has a quirk? You saw how he threw that ball. Iida commented. Though I think his power hurts his body. Bakugo seemed angry with that answer, then again, from what Sora and the entire class has seen, he's always angry. Why is it that you seem to be especially angry when it comes to Midoriya? Iida asked, making Sora pay a bit more attention, hopefully he would get an answer right from the guy himself. The only thing he got was a crazy look from Katsuki, which seemed to be because of Izuku. Sora still didn't like this, but he had faith that his friend would not only be able to win, but finally show this friend of his that he isn't a helpless kid who can be a sandbag anymore. Sora then looked at Izuku, who was sweating through his costume. Ah. You're sweating through your costume. Achako pointed out, if anyone else didn't notice it. Well Midoriya started, shaking and stuttering as he spoke. It's just because we're up against Kakin. Plus there's Iida too. We should be on our guard. Who knows what they'll pull. Oh right. Uraraka realized. Bakugo. He's the one who's always making fun of you. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Anguish of the Quirkless. Isuku sighed, sloping down a bit as he said, and he's amazing. He can be a real pain sure, but his strength and confidence and his ambition, not to mention his quirk. They're all so much greater than mine. Sora grit his teeth, hearing all this made him want to go over there and tell his friend how wrong those words are, how Izuku was so much better than he believed himself to be, and how unheroic that Bakugo truly was. The strength that this Katsuki guy has comes from his quirk alone. His confidence comes from belittling people like Izuku. His ambition, from what Sora could tell, is just to be the best in battle when that has nothing to do with being a hero. And his quirk, though strong, is nothing more than a fireworks show. Midoriya's strength came from his heart and it helped him get to where he is now. His confidence may be lacking, but it's always improved day by day and it will continue to get better. His ambition was to become the new symbol of peace, the next beacon of hope for people to look up to and feel safe. A true goal for a true hero. And his quirk was given to him by the current symbol of peace. That alone shows how amazing Izuku's quirk is and will later grow to be. But that just means Izuku continued, standing up and getting ready to start the battle. I have to do better. I refuse to lose today. Ichako was worried at first, but after that last sentence, her worries were gone and she even looked a little inspired. So it's a fated battle between rivals. Uraraka commented, making Izuku break composure. Oh, not that I'm trying to get you wrapped up in my fight or anything. He responded. Are you kidding? We're a team, right? She remarked. Let's win this. She raised her fist into the air, pumped up and ready to win. Sora smiled a bit. Even though Izuku talked down on himself earlier, he managed to give himself a pep talk that got him and his teammate ready for victory. Sora was rooting for them all the way. Then he saw All Might step up to the mic. Alright. He announced. Let's begin the indoor combat training. Team A and Team D, your time starts now. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Strategy vs Wilderness. Pay attention kids. All Might instructed. Think about what you would do. The group sees the heroes enter through a window and observe their surroundings. And just like that, we're in. Ochako silently commented. Careful. Izuku warned. There are a lot of blind spots. The two slowly walked down the hallway, checking every corner that was in their path. Izuku took point, always looking in every direction for any trace of a potential ambush or sealed off areas, anything that could clue him in on where to go or what to do. Ochako checked their flank every time and stayed close, making sure to stay quiet. They were walking down a straight path until Izuku saw something and stopped. Katsuki was in the air, right on top of them, and he went on the offensive, launching an explosion towards the pair, but Midoriya got Ochako and himself out of the way. However, his hood was torn from the attack. The two landed on the ground away and Izuku got himself up. "Uraraka, you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine. Thanks." She responded, grateful for the save. Both of them geared up for a fight, but Ochako noticed the torn mask. "Deku?" she worriedly said. "It's just my mask," he said, keeping his eye on the smoke in front of him. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Runaway Battle. The smoke cleared and Katsuki waved off whatever smoke was covering his view. Looking down on the two. "What's the matter, Deku?" he taunted. "Afraid to stand up and fight me? I knew you'd come at me first," Izuku said, getting ready to face his opponent. "And figured you'd try to catch me by surprise." The classmates each had their own things to say. "He almost got the jump on him," Mineta commented. "The sneak attack Bakugo?" Kirishima questioned. "What kind of man pulls cheap crap like that?" "It's a viable strategy," All Might pointed out. "He's playing the part. Acting like a true villain would." "It didn't work," Mina responded. Midoriya dodged him. "Look. There he goes," Denki said, directing everyone's attention to Bakugo charging towards Midoriya. "I won't hurt you so bad that they have to stop the fight," Katsuki exclaimed. "Just close. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostusaeron." Katsuki came in with a right hook reared up, but Izuku saw it before Bakugo got the chance to throw it out and managed to grab his attacker's arm and throw the boy over his back, making Katsuki land hard on his own back, flat onto the ground. The others were surprised, but Sora was just happy that this self-centered bully was getting thrown to the ground by his former victim. "Nice." Sora cheered. Izuku panted and then spoke to Katsuki. "Kakin, you always use a big right hook to start a fight. I know because I've watched you for years." Katsuki got his head off the ground and looked back to Izuku as he explained. "I analyzed every amazing hero, even you," Midoriya continued. "I wanted to learn everything I could about them. It was all in the notebook you burned and threw away." Katsuki looked even angrier than before. "You can call me Deku, but I'm not the same helpless defenseless kid anymore," Izuku exclaimed. "You hear me, I've changed. From now on, Deku is the name of a hero. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Darkness and Heart." Katsuki then got up and turned towards his target, not paying any mind towards Ochako at all. "Deku?" he growled, getting ready to let loose. "You're shaking in your boots, you're so scared." He let out a few small explosions, revving himself up for a fight he didn't think would happen. "And you want to fight me anyway. That's why I hate you." "Bakugo, come in," Tenya called out in his earpiece. "Give me a status report. Where are you?" "Just shut up and defend the weapon," Katsuki ordered. "I've got more important things to worry about." "Are you forgetting what our mission is?" Iida replied, trying to talk some sense into his ally. "Hello." No response. He hung up on me. "This isn't the time for radio silence. We're supposed to be partners. Urg. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Among Kasei." "Hey, who is Bakugo talking to?" Kirishima asked. "I'm not hearing anything. Can we get any sound with this video?" Sora was glad that All Might secretly gave the Keyblade wielder a set of earpieces to listen in on this. Though Sora wasn't allowed to touch them at all unless it was to take them out. "He's got a radio in his ear so he can talk to his partner," All Might explained, pointing to his ear to show that he had one as well. "I gave it to him before they started, along with a map of the building. Also this." All Might picked up a roll of tape and showed it to the class. "A roll of capture tape. Wrapping this around your opponent means you've apprehended them and they're out for the rest of the game. So there's a 15-minute time limit and the good guys have no idea what floor the nuclear weapon is hidden on, right?" Mina questioned. "Correct," All Might confirmed. "Then the heroes are at a clear disadvantage here. A big one," Ashido pointed out. "Real pros have to outwit villains on a daily basis," All Might explained. "That's life. Even when the odds aren't in our favor, we fight." The rest of the class got inspired instantly by the speech. Sora already knew the feeling of being at an overwhelming disadvantage and still fighting. The best example was the final battle. He had to fight the biggest demon tide he had ever seen, the 13 Seekers of Darkness, 13 Zehanert replicas, an armored Zehanert, who then used the X-Blade when he lost said armor, then fight through the darknesses in Van and Aqua's hearts, fight Terra's possessed body alone. Refight the 13 Seekers of Darkness and the replicas, a bunch of heartless and nobodies, a dark side, and refight an armored Zehanert who now had 13 Keyblades with him. All in the span of a day. Altogether, All Might instructed, hyping up the class. Let's hear a plus ultra. Everyone said in unison. Monsieur. Yuga commented. He's on the move. Everyone then looked at the screens and saw Kitsuki get ready to blast himself towards Izuku. Silence. Uraraka. Izuku called out. Go. She listened and went on ahead while Kitsuki blasted himself towards his target, performing a spin kick that Izuku saw and blocked. Beltsy move. Kitsuki said, almost sounding like a compliment. Think you can take me alone? Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostu airporting for duty. Kitsuki then noticed Izuku start to wrap the capture tape around his leg, however, Midoriya stopped the moment Bakugo attempted to strike and dodged out of the way of another blast. Kitsuki looked surprised and Izuku was getting more and more confident, keeping focused. The rest of the class was impressed. The little guy is really good. Rakido pointed out. He's holding his own and he hasn't even used his quirk yet. Hanta commented. Sora knew that it was because of the notes and he could tell that Yagi was thinking the same thing. All of those things that Izuku saw and studied allowed him to become the person he is today. Someone who for now doesn't need a quirk to fight. It made Sora smirk a bit more than he already was, especially since he could hear all this go down too. He could hear Kitsuki getting frustrated and Sora liked every second of it, but he was more happy that it was Izuku doing it, getting back at his bully for all the stuff he did. The smoke cleared once more and Kitsuki looked a bit worried. He was positioning himself again for an attack, but Izuku retreated and forced Kitsuki to give chase. "Get back here, Deku!" Bakugo yelled out. Now it became a wild goose chase. If Izuku could find a way to flank Kitsuki or get to the payload while avoiding him altogether, then this battle will be over. But if Kitsuki catches up to Midoriya, then he'll be stuck with the bomber until Izuku either captures him or gets beaten to the ground. Silence. Damn it. Kitsuki screamed out. You were tricking me for years by acting weak. Bet you've been laughing behind my back, huh? This shocked Izuku while he was still running. Brah. Bakugo roared. So where's that flashy power of yours now? This then irritated Midoriya, as if he was being ridiculed for not using his quirk against his opponent. Sora wanted to tell Izuku to not listen to him, but he couldn't. Not only would that count as cheating for this fight, but All Might would also hear Sora talk through the earpiece, so he kept his mouth shut and just hoped that Izuku wouldn't listen. Let's see how it compares to mine. Kitsuki challenged, making small explosions as a method of tempting Izuku to come at him. Quirk or no, you'll never beat me, Deku. He said, as he then started blasting through doors, searching room to room for his Izuku, like a hunter looking for his prey. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostred incoming. That guy has some real anger issues. Denki commented. Kinda scary. Izuku stopped to take a breather and hugged the corner to make sure that he could see if Kitsuki came at him from either side. Sora then saw that Izuku was analyzing his situation, planning his next move, looking at all the factors, and making the best assumptions. For the 3 months they lived together, Sora had learned how much of a planner his friend was and how big of an advantage that would be when the two entered UA. Stop hiding. Bakugo screamed out. Come out and face me, you coward. Izuku looked like he was preparing himself and Sora knew what was about to happen, but this time, he wasn't worried. The look of confidence and determination on Izuku's face made it clear that Midoriya knew that he could do this. Not only that, but Kitsuki was unfocused, pissed off, and just acting on impulse. This would be easy pickings. Sora didn't have to worry now. He knew that his friend would pull through, and now, it's time to see him do it. Silence. But for now, Sora decided to look at where his other friend, Achako, was. She managed to locate the bomb and still be undetected. She was getting ready to radio Midoriya and stay stealthy, but she then overheard Iida talking to himself. Bakugo definitely has a villainous side, and that's exactly what we need to succeed in this mission. He stated. I need to temporarily devote myself to criminal intent. Yes. I won't fail this trial and risk bringing shame down on the Iida family name. That means, I must now embrace evil to become a hero. Sora, upon hearing this, was just confused. This sounded like an over-the-top explanation of what Riku did during the first adventure Sora had when he embraced darkness to try and save Kairi, but this time, it was Iida saying that he was going to be a villain, to be a hero. Okay then. Behold. Iida announced, acting as evil as some generic TV bad guy would. I am the personification of villainy. It made Achako desperately try to hold in her laughter, but Tenya barely heard it. "Uraraka, is that you?" he questioned, making his voice sound like one of those over-the-top Avildors. Rather fitting, considering how over-the-top Tenya seemed to be anyway. "Play Boku no Hero Academia," asked Professor Aizawa theme. Achako was stunned at how Iida heard her, and then, instead of just pulling back and hoping that he would question his guess, she got into view, letting Iida continue this weird, yet amusing act. "I knew you would come here alone," the instant that Bakugo ran off by himself and engaged with Midoriya. He monologues to her. "Your quirk allows you to float anything that you touch. But I've prepared for that by hiding every object in this room, so you have nothing to use against me, do-gooder," he said, flaunting his arms in the air to present the room itself. Sora was glad that he was in the back of the room because he could not stay still with this hilarious spectacle. He covered his mouth, keeping his laughter in check, while also just listening to this continue. He was tempted to turn the earpiece off if anyone wasn't paying attention to the screen, but that was far from the case, as everyone was looking at what the heck was going on. So he could keep the thing on and continue to enjoy this. "My dastardly tricks have rendered you helpless," he continued monologuing to Achako, who was just frozen in place by pure confusion. "You've blundered, hero. Wahahahaha. Ahahahaha. He really is playing the part," Achako mumbled to herself. The laugh at the end almost made Sora slip, but he barely held it in. This was too funny, but he had to endure it. He then saw Uraraka contact Izuku. Deku," she said. "I'm here," Izuku replied. "How's it going?" Iida continued to laugh and call himself a mastermind, as Achako informed him that Iida knows that I'm here. "Sorry. Right now he's monologuing." "Where are you?" Midoriya asked. "Near the middle of the 5th floor," Uraraka responded. "Right above me," Izuku pointed out. Sora saw Izuku get his thinking face on. He was making a plan with the information he had. The Keyblade wielder was now on the edge of his non-existent seat, waiting for whatever Izuku had in store. He got himself up and was getting ready to head out, but he looked the wrong way because Katsuki came in the other direction and found him. "Play Boku no Hero Academia," asked Hero A. "I'm all loaded up," Katsuki said in a frightfully calm tone as he lifted his right arm up, watching it glow red for a second. "What does that mean?" Izuku questioned. "Why aren't you using your fancy quirk?" Bakugo asked. "Don't tell me you're underestimating me, Deku." His eyes shrunk and he cracked a very sinister smile on his face, as if he had a foolproof plan for his next move and how to win the fight. "Get over here and show me what you're really made of." Izuku turned and faced his opponent, captured tape in hand and ready for round 2. He spoke to him in a confident tone, "Kakin, I'm not scared of you anymore." This made Katsuki get angry, but then he calmed himself down, playing his cards close and keeping a cool head. He decided to try what Izuku does as a method of beating him at his own game. "Since you're such a stalker, by now you probably know how my quirk, explosion, works," Bakugo explained. "I secrete nitroglycerin like sweat from my hands and make it blow up." Sora made a mental note of that explanation, just in case they ever got into a fight and Aizawa wasn't there to stop it. "Imagine what I could do if I had a lot of it," he continued speaking as he pulled a giant pin on his gauntlet to reveal a smaller pin, gearing himself up for something big. "That's right. These gauntlets aren't just for show. They've been storing up my sweat inside for one monster blast." He put his finger on the pin and took aim at Izuku with a look to kill. Sora was now very worried. If what he said was true, then the blast from the gauntlet was going to be like a smaller version of Donald's Zeta Flare attack. Izuku wouldn't survive taking this blast head on. His only hope of surviving is to dodge it and pray he only gets skimmed. "Young Bakugo," All Might interjected. "Don't do it. You'll kill him. He'll be fine as long as he dodges," he remarked, making it sound easy to do, but when he let it rip, it covered almost the entire hallway. Izuku didn't see a way to dodge it and braced. It made the whole building shake, and the two upstairs were caught off balance for a second. The force of the attack could even be felt from where Sora and the class was. "Whoa. This is nuts," Kirishima pointed out. "Come in," All Might said into the mic. "Come in, Midoriya." Sora could see on one of the cameras that Izuku was flat on his back, on the ground, next to the hole where the attack went through. He looked like he just went through hell, but he was still alive. He pulled his head up. "Look. On that cam." Sora pointed to the screen. "He's still alive. Is that even allowed?" Izuku asked himself before bracing himself as he heard footsteps in the smoke and Katsuki laughing like a madman. "These are awesome," Bakugo said. "The more nitro sweat that's stored in these gauntlets, the stronger the explosion is." The other one then glowed red for a second, signaling that it was full now. "Go ahead. Use your stupid quirk on me, Deku." Izuku looked terrified, while Katsuki looked like he was having a blast. Even if you give me everything you've got, you'll never beat me. Play Boku no Hero Academia OST combat training. Iida was trying to contact Bakugo, and Ichako noticed, attempting to secure the bomb. Iida decided to run towards the bomb and ran towards her, keeping his evil persona while he said, "Not so fast, hero." Uraraka used her quirk on herself and jumped over Tenya, floating straight towards the bomb. However, thanks to Iida's speed, he grabbed the payload and moved it to another spot in a second, making her effort wasted and now letting the villain see that she could make herself float. And he now needed to be careful of that. She tumbled on the floor and lost her headgear, stopping when she hit the wall. "Admirable attempt," Iida complimented. "But your quirk is no threat if you can't touch anything. I can easily keep this weapon out of your reach until time runs out." Mwahahahahaha. Ichako looked a bit sick, but she was still determined to continue the attempt despite being at a complete disadvantage. Sora was cheering for her in his head, but he was more focused on Izuku at the moment. "What's the matter?" Katsuki asked. "You look scared. You dodged the attack, so you can still fight, can't you? Come and get me." Play Boku no Hero Academia OST Enemy Strike. Izuku radioed Ichako for a status report. "Come in, what's the situation?" "It's not good." Uraraka replied, sounding distressed. "Are you ignoring me again?" Katsuki questioned, starting to twitch uncontrollably with that sadistic smile still on his face and sweat everywhere on his face. "I'll get your attention." "Sir, isn't this getting out of hand?" Ijiro asked. "That Bakugo is acting real crazy. He's gonna kill him." "Not so," All Might said. Sora knew that Katsuki wouldn't kill Izuku because he said himself that he was just going to beat Izuku down as badly as he was allowed to. But that didn't make this any more easy to watch. This was still his friend being beaten and terrorized by this scum of a student. It was then that he was hearing something on his earpiece. "Bakugo." All Might spoke into the mic. "Use that stored up power again and I'll stop this fight. Your team will lose." "Huh?" Katsuki responded, looking really irritated with that command. To employ such a strong attack indoors is inviting the destruction of the stronghold you should be protecting. All Might explained. "That's a poor strategy, whether you're a hero or a villain. The penalty will be a massive loss of points." "The pillar by the window," Izuku said as he said his plan to Ichako while the others were focused on All Might's announcement to Bakugo. "Get there now." Itsuki looked pissed and he charged to Izuku. "Fine then," he screamed as he blitzed towards the green hero. "We'll fight hand to hand." Midoriya geared himself up for Katsuki's attack, getting ready to counter it, but as Katsuki closed the distance, he feigned an attack and launched himself over Izuku, while also making a smokescreen in front of the hero's face. Stopping himself behind his opponent and blasting Midoriya in the back, causing the boy to wince and yelp in immense pain from the force applied to his back. Everyone was shocked at this attack and wondered how he even did it. All except for Momo, who watched, and Shoto, who explained it. "He doesn't come off as a guy with a strategy, but he's actually quite intelligent," he said. "What are you talking about?" Kirishima asked. "He changed his trajectory mid-air while using a blast that doubled as a smokescreen," Todoroki stated. "Very clever. A feigned attack like that requires an extreme amount of precision," Momo added. "He had to calculate the physics and demonstrate control over his quirk." "Ugh, Bakugo is uber talented," Kaminari said in a disapproving tone. "I hate it. And yet Izuku is still standing," Sora pointed out. "Your point being?" Shoto replied. "Until he either can't stand up anymore or uses his quirk to end the fight in one blow, the battle isn't over," Sora said. "Midoriya is a thinker. That's how he's been able to deal with someone like Bakugo for almost 10 minutes. If he plays his cards right, then this battle will be his win." This explanation perplexed everyone there, even Momo, Shoto and Yagi were curious as to how Sora had that much confidence in Izuku's abilities, in spite of what is happening right now. Truth be told, Sora wanted Midoriya to just stay down, but he knew that his friend wouldn't do that, so the best that he could do was at least give the class some hope that Izuku could pull through. Besides, he wasn't wrong so far. Back to the fight, Izuku was recovering from the shock when he heard Katsuki call out, "Here it comes, nerd." The famous right hook you were whining about. He wasn't lying, and he went for it, landing a solid hit on the boy's side, pushing Izuku into the air for a second before Bakugo grabbed the hero's right arm and used his free hand to spin around and give himself the momentum to throw Midoriya over his body. "Deku. Don't you ever forget what you are," he said as he threw Izuku onto the ground, making the boy scream in pain from his back getting slammed on the ground. "You're a weakling." Play Boku no Hero Academia OST Evil of Ecology. "This is hard to watch," Nina commented. "All he has to do is wrap tape around him, not kill him." "Bakugo is certainly acting like a villain," Fumikage chirped in. "I thought Midoriya was pretty amazing at the start of the fight." Denki started. but he's completely outmatched in terms of combat power. Not to mention that Bakugo seems like a natural at all this stuff. So much for him playing his cards right, huh? Yuga said, looking at Sora as he did. When Midoriya is on the ground, then the fight will be over. Sora said, keeping his faith in his friend. Until then, I have faith that the heroes will win. Izuku got up and was looking around, thinking of a way to do just something, anything at this point. He needed some sort of idea that could get him either out of here or Kitsuki on the floor. He got on the move. He's running away. Ashido commented. Not very manly, but he doesn't have much of a choice. Ijiro included. He's outgunned unless he's got some kind of plan. It's possible. With what that Sora kid has been saying, it seems like he might. Izuku got himself to the wall and stood up, getting ready to try something that was crazy, but just might work. Kitsuki marched towards him, looking irritated. Why won't you use your damn quirk against me? He asked, looking offended. Still think you can stop me without it? Izuku lowered his head and said, that's not it. You've been hiding your true power for years. Bakugo continued. What's the deal, Deku? Did you think you were better than me this entire time? That's what you think? Izuku asked. You idiot. You've always been stronger, Kaken. I know that you're better than me. Izuku's eyes teared up, but he kept going. Can't you see? That's why I want to beat you. Because you're amazing. You're even more of an idiot than I realized. Kitsuki replied. Come at me. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostuseron. The both of them charged towards each other and weren't going to hold anything back. Bakugo started revving up his explosion, preparing to blast his opponent into hell, while Midoriya let one for all flow through his entire arm, looking like he was going to send his opponent to the afterlife. They're gonna kill each other. Kirishima stated. Sir. No. Sora interjected. He's got a plan. No amount of planning is going to stop Bakugo from letting loose that attack. Denki retorted, almost yelling at Sora. He can do this. Sora responded. I know he can. How is he going to do this? Mina asked, wondering if Sora was alright in the head. You're rockin' now. Izuku ordered, executing the plan that Sora had overheard on the earpiece. Right. Ichako responded, hugging the pillar that she needed to. The series of events on the screen played out exactly like Sora was about to say. He's not going to hit Kitsuki. Sora said. He's gonna aim it up and destroy the ceiling above them. The bomb is there and the force will knock Tenya off balance. Ichako will use that opening to attack with the debris and the pillar she's holding. From there, she'll float over Iida while he's distracted with the attack and secure the bomb. All while using his other hand to block the blast aimed at his face. Silence. When they saw the series of events and how Sora explained it to the letter, they were impressed at how it was 100% accurate. How did you know exactly what was going to happen? Momo asked, shocked at how Sora could predict such a thing. I know Izuku well enough that he would do a crazy plan like that. Sora answered. I've seen what he can do, and it would be best not to underestimate him. With that, Sora walked away, leaving the class stunned. Play KHBBS Ostventus. When he was out of the room, Sora took the earpieces out and put them in his pockets as he took off to where Izuku was. What he said back there was true, but only to some extent. He knew Izuku would make a crazy plan like that, but the only reason he was able to explain it was because of the fact that he heard the plan beforehand. It was also the reason that he had faith in Izuku, even when the kid was as injured as he could be. Sora got to Izuku as quick as he did, thanks to his Flamotion, and was able to catch his friend before he hit the ground. He got Midoriya in his arms and smiled. The boy noticed Sora and was both surprised and happy to see his friend. You did great, Izuku. Sora said, carrying him out of the building, paying no mind to the mentally broken Kitsuki that was right next to him. Come on. Let's get you patched up. The hero team wins. All Might announced. And that is the end of this chapter. This was the longest one I have ever written. It's 15 pages long on my doc. The highest I ever did before was 11, so hey, new record for me. Either way, Sora is getting used to the school life and trying his best to make Izuku have as easy of a time as possible. Now that this fight was out of the way, I can now focus on the next big change in the original series and how Sora being in this class helps this specific group of 3 out in this training. Hope you enjoyed, and until I decide to upload again. Chapter 8. Play KHBBS Ost Eternal Moments. Thanks to Sora taking Izuku there before, he knew where to go and got to the nurse's office by the time the bots that were supposed to come get Izuku had gotten to where Kitsuki was standing. Izuku was slightly conscious during this and was surprised at how fast they got here. How did we? Izuku struggled to speak. I used my Flamotion on both of us. Sora explained, opening the door to the office. I'll tell you the rest after you recover. I have to get back to class. My goodness. Recovery girl said, surprised at how fast the two got here. How on earth did you get here so fast? And what happened to him? Combat training. Sora replied. Sorry, but I gotta go. I'll tell you the rest after class. Wait. Hold on a minute. Recovery girl tried to stop Sora, but it was too late. The boy was already gone. Ugh. You boys are the worst when it comes to listening, you know that. Izuku couldn't really say anything in response, mainly because he was unconscious. Silence. When Sora had gotten back to the group, he was just in time to hear about the MVP of the battle. When questioned about what's going on with Izuku, Sora just said that the nurse will take care of him, and that was enough of an answer. Well, despite the results, All Might started. The MVP of this exercise is young Iida. Everyone was surprised, except for Momo and Shoto, as usual. Shouldn't it be one of the heroes instead, since they're the winners? Sayu questioned. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostamon Kasei. Valid question. All Might remarked. Why didn't I choose one of those two? Who has a guess? Sir, I can tell you why. Momo spoke up. Iida embraced this challenge. He was the only one who truly adapted to his assigned role. I'll explain. Bakugo's judgment was clouded by a personal grudge against Midoriya. As you pointed out earlier, launching a large-scale attack indoors was a foolish move. It could have been disastrous. Similarly, Midoriya's plan was also poorly thought out, considering the amount of damage he received. He rendered himself helpless. Not smart. As for Uraraka, she let her guard down mid-battle, and her final attack was far too reckless considering the hypothetical stakes. If she treated the fake weapon as though it were real, she never would have risked using such an imprecise move. Iida was fully prepared for his opponent's arrival. He had a strategy and never lost sight of his mission to protect the dummy weapon, even if he was foiled in the end. Sora noticed how Iida's shame from losing quickly ended up turning into bliss from the very long explanation that Momo gave, detailing why Iida was the best out of the four. Sora also noticed how Yagi seemed a bit surprised at how detailed she was about the entire thing. Yes, well, you overlooked a few things. All Might interjected. Young Iida could have relaxed a little bit in the exercise. But, otherwise you nailed it. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostogamagi. Momo then explained about how devoting oneself to learning was the only way to become a top hero. Sora could only partially agree on that. While learning is important, some things will be forever unpredictable, and as such, you have to take chances and risks that you don't want to do. You can't rely on a pattern that you have in your head all the time. That fight could even be proof of that. Katsuki changed his style mid-fight and forced Izuku to take a risk that he didn't want to, but had to take. Sora decided to just move on from it. Now then, All Might announced. Time to blow this joint. Let's move on to the next match. Think about everything we saw and discussed as you tackle this training for yourself. Yes, sir. Responded everyone except Bakugo. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostu Air reporting for duty. Next up was Team B as the heroes and Team I as the villains. Each side was getting ready. Sora noticed that the invisible person was taking off what little clothes she had left off. Smart, but still weird to think that there is technically a naked girl on the screen. Look alive, kids. All Might instructed. Show us you're the embodiment of good or evil. Let's go. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Strategy vs Wilderness. The big guy named Mizo started morphing his many limbs into ears, but then as the guy spoke for a few seconds, Shoto said something and then swiftly froze the entire building by the time Mizo walked outside. Shoto slowly made his way to the bomb and broke a sly smile as he said something towards Ejiro. The tailed boy didn't even fight back and begrudgingly accepted defeat at the hands of Shoto as the walking freezer touched the payload, signaling the end. Everyone had their arms around them, shivering from the cold, huddled together, except for Sora, due to him being in a blizzard with not much clothes before. All Might then complimented how Shoto stopped the villains without damaging the weapon or his ally. This was a bit too one-sided, and the other students noticed this. As if that display of power wasn't enough, he then melted all the ice as quickly as he made it, turning it into steam, and any water that wasn't steamed was a very high temperature. This wasn't a bit, it was way too one-sided. Overkill even. The other students noted how scary the guy acted and also pointed out that he got NV recommendation, meaning that he had to be hot stuff. Sora broke the ice and said, I guess I know who I'm doing my exercise with now. Earning a few glances at him. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Hero A. After the review of the second match, the next battle was Team H as heroes versus Team J as villains. The villain strategy was good, making a makeshift barrier around the weapon so it's harder to reach, but then Sora noticed something that was kinda unpleasant for him. The bird boy, named Tokoyami. His quirk was something he called Dark Shadow, and when in the dark areas of the building, it seemed to grow in size and power. When Sora first saw it, it looked like a pure heartless. The dark skin, the yellow eyes, the way it attacked with claws. It reminded Sora of the guardian he faced over and over during his adventures. It felt so weird to him, seeing a kid his age, maybe older, have a power that Sora was already familiar with, even though it's one he did not like to remember. The match was fairly even, but in the end, the heroes were able to support each other perfectly, securing the weapon in the end. Next was Team C, as villains versus Team G, as heroes. Momo created steel plates to seal off all entrances to the room with the payload, while Mineta just stared at her features, earning himself a very annoyed glance from the girl. During this time, Jiro had used her earplugs that were actually a part of her ears to listen in through the building and find the team easily. Kaminari used his electric powers, but it turns out that if he does for too long, he short-circuits and becomes dumb. But the situation being too stacked up against the heroes, they lost. Next was Team E as heroes and Team F as villains. This one was weird. Koda's ability to talk to animals was good for getting backup, but they gave away the position of the payload when the windows were broken in order to do that. Sato's super strength was also good, but he got dumb and tired after 5 minutes. Mina's acid was good for her to move around, but she had to be careful not to hurt anyone with it, and also Aoyama's cape. And Aoyama well. He was trying to look good, and his laser was only good for scaring off the birds that came after them. The villains won due to the heroes constantly getting lost because Mina melted her map by accident and Yuga tossed his at the beginning of the match. After the review of that last battle was over, it was time for the last match. Silence. Alright. All Might called out. Time for the final battle. The teams will now be young Sora and young Shoji as the heroes and Team I reprising the villain role. Head over to the last building and get yourselves prepared. Yes, sir. The four of them said in unison, turning around and walking out the door. As the four of them had exited the room, Sora had noticed that his opponents were looking a little down. Toru's shoes were dragging a bit and Ajiro didn't look too happy. Even his ally was a little disheartened, looking less determined than he was before. Sora could see that the three of them felt humiliated at the fact that they had to do this after the embarrassment that was Shoto's power play. As Team I was starting to walk ahead, Sora decided to do what he does. Hey you two. He called out, getting the two's attention. What is it? Mashirao asked, while both of them turned around to face Sora, who was sticking his arm out and holding it in front of the two. May the best team win. Sora said with a reassuring smile. The two of them stopped and from what Sora could tell, Ajiro was a bit taken aback at this move. When Sora was about to say something, he saw Hagakure's glove grab Sora's hand and shake it for a second. Yeah. She replied, sounding reinvigorated. Good luck you two. Mashirao ended up extending his arm out to Shoji, who reciprocated the action with one of his arms. Now that the teams were in better spirits, they headed to the building they needed to go to, looking forward to the event. Lake Rechain of Memories asked just wondering. Sora and Mizo were waiting outside the building, getting themselves prepared. Sora was waving his keyblade around, practicing some spells by performing the actions, but not actually casting the spells, and Shoji was practicing his morphing abilities by changing the ends of his limbs from hands. Ears to eyes and back to hands as fast as he could. Sora felt excited because he could finally let loose and properly test his abilities, or at least what he had left after he vanished and was taken here. Okay. All Might spoke into the mic. Let the final battle for today begin. Play KH3 asked sound of reassurance. Sora tapped Mizo's shoulder and got his partner's attention. I got an idea. Sora said. Hold on to me. I'm okay. Shoji replied, placing a hand on Sora's shoulder. What now? Just then, the two began to glow blue. Mizo was confused, looking at Sora, who just smiled and gave a thumbs up before suddenly using his Flamotion to blitz to the top of the building without making a sound. This move shocked Shoji, who was still holding on to Sora, almost expecting this to not be all. Okay. Sora remarked. Let's head inside and win this thing. Mizo nodded and let go of Sora's shoulder. The two of them slowly entered through the door on the rooftop, making sure to be as quiet as possible, shutting the door behind them. Sora tapped his hand and then cupped it around his ear, signaling Shoji to use one of his limbs to make an ear and listen to the sounds in the building. 3 floors below us, Mizo quietly informed Sora. Lots of sounds are coming from there. Most likely setting up extra traps. And another noise a few floors below that. Footsteps, wearing boots. They're heavy. Sora nodded and then looked down at the flight that the pair had to scale down. Sora then quietly asked. Hey, are you able to use your arms to parachute down? I can slow down my fall with them, but not use them like a parachute. Shoji answered. Alright. Sora replied. When I signal you with my earpiece, jump down. What are you?" Mizo started, but couldn't finish as he saw Sora go over the safety railing and dive down the stairs. Though he had done this before, Sora forgot to tell his partner about that. When he looked back up, he noticed Shoji looked at him like he was a madman, and Sora had felt kinda bad about that. Anyway, he landed safely and silently on the floor, then radioed Mizo to jump. When he looked up, he saw his partner, falling a slight bit slower than he was. It was then that Sora summoned the Kingdom Key and held it forward, bracing himself as he radioed Shoji to aim for the key that he was holding out. Mizo angled himself properly and landed on the key, but Sora almost lost his grip and the sword was very close to the ground. Shoji quietly got himself off of the blade and they started walking through the halls. Mizo was taking point, having an eye on one of his arms, looking behind him, a pair of ears to monitor the sounds and give Sora any updates, and the rest of them as other eyes looking in any other direction. Sora had his Kingdom Key in his hand and was staying close to Shoji, keeping his eyes open as well. "Someone's coming," Mizo said, finding the closest room he could and getting himself and Sora there. The footsteps were getting closer and it sounded like they were running, like whoever it was, heard that. "Hagakure," Ejiro spoke, stopping in his tracks outside the room the two were hiding in. "I heard something over here. I'm gonna check it out." "Got it," Tor responded. "Tell me if you find them." "Understood," Mashura replied, starting to look around for any trace of the two. Sora quietly got out his capture tape and was silently creeping up behind the boy, getting ready to subdue him, but when he pulled on the roll, it made a very loud noise. "Play KHBBS," asked the tumbling. The tailed boy heard that and didn't hesitate to turn around and attempt to kick his opponent, but Sora jumped back and summoned his Kingdom Key. Ejiro moved forward, spinning around, swinging his tail horizontally. Sora ducked and went for a thrust with his blade, but Mashura saw through it, grabbing the blade and pulling Sora towards himself, using his free hand to throw a punch that Sora caught with his free hand. The Keyblade wielder unsummoned his weapon, jumped up and drop-kicked his opponent, making some distance between the two, before summoning the Kingdom Key to stop himself from hitting the floor too hard. While Ejiro was stopping his fall with his tail, Sora silently signaled to Mizo to go, while he took care of Mashura. Shoji nodded and got out of there, leaving Sora to deal with his opponent. "Fighting me one-on-one when you could have teamed up on me," Ejiro pointed out. "It's the fair thing to do," Sora remarked. "Besides, I trust that Mizo can take care of himself." "Well then let's get started," Mashura said, getting ready to continue the fight. Sora nodded and then went towards Ejiro, Keyblade in hand as he prepared to swing, but Mashura was faster and jumped up in the air, doing a front flip to gain the momentum needed to swing his tail down, full force at Sora, but was surprised to see that the swordsman blocked the attack head-on. And even reversed the momentum, forcing Ejiro back up in the air. Sora took the opportunity and used his flow motion to get to the ceiling and then launch himself down, forcing the tailed student to the ground. Sora jumped off and then stuck his Keyblade up, waving it around for half a second while Mashura was getting back up and then he pointed it towards Ejiro, the tip glowing orange as he positioned himself. "Fire," Sora announced. Just then, a small fireball came out of the tip of the blade and went towards Mashura at a moderate pace, giving himself just enough time to dodge the attack. He looked back at Sora to see that he wasn't in view, but still heard the hero close by. He looked up and saw Sora coming at him with a downward slash. He braced and managed to catch the blade with both of his hands, before attempting to pull Sora towards the floor, only for the Keyblade wielder to unsummon his sword and resummon in reverse grip, then attempt to land an upward slash. Mashura saw this and managed to dodge by the skin of his teeth. Sora then landed on his free hand and pushed himself back upright, backflipping away to get some distance again. "Not this time," Ejiro said, lunging himself forward and closing the distance, getting right in Sora's face and landing a solid sidekick on the Keyblade wielder's chest, making him lose his balance and almost fall on his back, but Mashura grabbed Sora's arm. Used his tail to trip the Keyblade wielder and throw him over his shoulder into the wall. Sora hit the wall hard as he bounced off of it and back into Mashura, who was getting himself ready to spin kick Sora when he rebounded towards him. But Sora managed to block the attack and push himself away, rolling to safety. "You're pretty good," Sora pointed out, getting up and getting ready to continue. "Thanks," Ejiro replied. "You too." He was panting from the scuffle, he looked a bit tired. Silence. Back in the monetary room, most of the class was amazed with that spectacle. "Holy crap man," Denki said. "He's strong, fast, can summon and unsummon that key thing at will, and shoot fire," Sato pointed out. "What else can this guy do?" Hanta questioned. "What the heck is his quirk?" Minoru asked. "It's like my creation quirk, but on a whole different scale," Momo pointed out. "Wait, you can do those things too?" Kaminari questioned. "No," Yaoi Rozu answered. I can't create things like fire, and I can't unmake my creations. I also have to know what I'm creating, down to a molecular level, and it looks like he has to just say whatever he makes. His quirk is called Summon. All Might said. Summon? Ujiro repeated. Correct. All Might answered. He can summon objects and natural elements out of thin air, as well as remove them. So that blue light around him must be some sort of application of his quirk, summoning that around himself and allowing him to move at such high speeds. Most likely some sort of unique element that he can make. Momo hypothesized. Top that off with the fact that he can choose what direction he can summon the key-shaped weapon, as well as potentially having other elemental-based attacks, and he might be unrivaled in this class when it comes to his quirk. The students were amazed and also kinda jealous. Toshinori, however, was just glad that the class bought that excuse. Sora has way too many abilities to count, even when he is limited. It's a good thing that someone who actually has a quirk that is somewhat similar to Sora's abilities was here to explain it. Mashirao was still panting from the scuffle. It took a lot of his strength to hold back Sora's attacks, and he was starting to feel tired because of the adrenaline leaving his system. Sora noticed this and unsummoned his Keyblade. You need to take a break? Sora asked, looking a bit concerned. I didn't go in too hard, did I? Ujiro replied. You mean you're not even trying? Well, I'm holding back so I don't hurt you. Sora sheepishly explained, scratching the back of his head as he tried to be careful with his fight. Mashirao was shocked because Sora didn't look like that strong of a guy, but he was practically unscathed. He ended up letting his guard down, and that would have cost him if it was anyone else. Sorry that I didn't say anything. Sora apologized. I didn't want you to get discouraged fighting me. Play KHBBS asked the worlds. Ujiro smirked. This guy was considering his feelings after what happened last time. It was almost just like before. He didn't stand a chance. Sora was on a whole different level, but unlike the first time, he wasn't mad about it. The opposite in fact. In spite of just meeting Sora, the hero of this scenario ended up earning the villain's respect in more ways than one. Well, that's very kind of you. Mashirao commented. But you still have to capture me if you want to move forward, so I suggest you do that. Sora then nodded and resummoned the Kingdom Key. Play KHBBS *risky romp. Sora went in for another attack, but Ujiro wasn't going to go down, even though he had no chance, he would still at least stall Sora's time, or try to catch the hero off guard and use his capture tape. He used his tail to propel himself forward, getting right to Sora and tackling the Keyblade wielder to the ground. He stayed on top and tried to use the tape right there, but Sora rolled back and got himself on top of Mashirao, grabbing the tape and throwing it to the side. Almost got me there. Sora commented. While Ujiro appreciated the praise from his opponent, he was focusing on trying to get Sora off of him. He got one of his legs in front of him and kicked Sora off of him. He then rolled back and got on his feet, but Sora already closed the distance and started swinging his weapon at Mashirao, forcing him to dodge and try to back up. He ended up backed into a wall, and Sora pinned him there, pressing the Kingdom Key on his throat, holding his hands up with the other hand, and pressing Ujiro's feet down to the floor with his own. Got you? Sora said. Indeed you did. Mashirao said, accepting defeat as he let Sora wrap the tape around him. That was a good match. Sora said. Let's have another sometime. I'd like that. Ujiro replied. Silence. Hey Mizo. Sora said into his earpiece. Mashirao's out. Where are you? I'm 2 floors down, near the far back left corner of the building. Shoji replied. I'm disarming the traps that were set up around the payload so I can get to it. You hear the other one around? Sora asked. No. Mizo pointed out. I haven't heard anything ever since you finished your fight. Keep your guard up. Sora said. She could be anywhere. I'll head over to you. Understood. Shoji replied. As Mizo was getting closer to the payload, he was increasingly cautious, making many ears around his body. He didn't need eyes, since he was tracking someone invisible, but that was his mistake, as he would soon see. Play KHBBS Austin Kakao. He suddenly felt a body drop on him and wrap around his back. It was Toru. She climbed up one of the pillars and waited for Shoji to get close, so she would be able to sneak up on him without making a sound. He struggled, but couldn't shake her off of him. He felt the capture tape start to wrap around his body, and he kept shaking his body to try and get her off, but it wasn't working. He then viciously spread his arms out, managing to get her off, but she did that on purpose, as the capture tape was now surrounding him. She then tugged and got Mizo completely wrapped up. Yes. She cheered. I did it. Now all that's left is Sora. Mizo grunted, but then admitted defeat. Good move. I could hear your movements, but you didn't make a move until I was right where you wanted me. Yep. She explained. The traps were set up so that they would lead you to here, where I could literally get the drop on you. Shoji then closed his eyes and let out a sigh. So where do you want me? Oh right. Hagakure realized that Mizo needed to be moved. Just sit next to the bomb please. Toru got Shoji up and moved him over to the payload, making him look like a hostage in this situation. She then climbed up another pillar, using the spare capture tape as a rope to wrap around the pillar and climb up. Silence. Sora had gotten to the room that Mizo mentioned and then looked around. He didn't see any traps or any sign of the girl. He did however notice Shoji, strapped to the payload. Mizo? Sora called out, rushing over to his ally. Play KH Rechain of Memories Ost Monsters Monstro. Sora was almost there when he saw capture tape surrounding his body. He barely had any time to summon his blade in reverse grip and cut through it. He twirled the blade around and then, with one hand, scraped the edge of it on the ground for a second before executing an upward slice behind him, turning himself around as he did the slice to get ready for a fight, but she dropped the tape, making it unknown where she was. He looked around for anything that could clue him in on where she was, but he couldn't see anything in the room move. Suddenly, he felt a tap on his shoulder, he instinctively turned, and he then felt his hood get pulled over his head and tugged down. Sora dropped the kingdom key and tried to grab Toru, but she let go and managed to snatch his capture tape, unrolling it and trying to wrap up Sora in it. Sora jumped up and summoned the keyblade, waving it above his head and then pointing it straight at the floor, the tip glowing white. Blizzard. Sora called out. Suddenly, an ice crystal came out of the blade and struck the ground, shattering the crystal and spreading snowflakes around the area. Some landed on Hagakure, and Sora noticed that. He used his flow motion to get to her, and he grabbed her wrists due to her still holding the tape and him being able to trace it to her hands. He held them up and then got both her hands in one of Sora's, giving him a free hand to grab the tape, but she kicked the tape away and then kicked Sora's leg, making him lose his grip as she pushed him away, making him stumble to the floor for a second. Sora could hear her making a beeline for the tape that was also in front of the bomb, and he acted fast. He shot out another blizzard and then used flow motion on the ice trail it made. Toru unwrapped the tape again, but she failed to notice Sora's approach, only noticing the blizzard as she moved to the side and watched it trail past the payload. When she looked back to Sora, he had already taken the tape and it was unraveled all around her. She tried to get out of the way, but Sora had already won. He held onto one end of the tape and let his flow motion do the rest. The tape restricted her body to the neck down, making her look like a mummy, and she ended up being pulled with Sora towards the bomb. Sora had jumped off the ice trail, and Hagakure ended up following him up. Sora landed next to the payload and he extended his arms out, catching her before she hit the ground and then gently putting her down before placing his hand on the payload. Play KH Union Cross Ost Game Central Station. And with that spectacular move, the winners are the heroes. All Might announced on the mic. Yeah. Sora cheered. Oh. Toru cried out. We lost again. But you did so much better this time. Sora pointed out. You almost had me a few times there. Hagakure thought about it for a second and then said, yeah, you're right about that. That was so much better than just getting a burning shower. Sora chuckled at the remark and helped his classmates up. He cut the tape that was holding Mizo and was about to do it for Toru, but then stopped. What's the matter? She asked. Do you know where you put your clothes? Sora asked. Oh. Hagakure realized what he was talking about. Jay, just cut me loose and look away when you finish. I'll get the tape off me. Sora innocently chuckled and signaled Shoji to go on ahead. Though Mizo was confused at why this was a problem, since she was invisible, he still obliged. When Shoji left the room, Sora cut the tape, turned around and walked away, not looking back, so she could have some privacy. He went back to cut off Ajiro's tape, but Mizo already undid it. The three then walked together towards the entrance of the building. But Mashirao had something to say. Shoji told me about your scuffle with Hagakure. He said that she managed to get out of your grip. Yeah. Sora confirmed. Be honest with me. Ajiro commented. You let her go on purpose, didn't you? Because your grip is actually really strong, even with one hand. Sora placed his hands behind his head and replied, Maybe. You let your bout with her drag on? Mizo questioned. Well, all three of you looked down in the dumps after that first match, and I knew that my words of encouragement at the beginning weren't going to be enough. Sora explained. So I made it my mission to make all of you guys feel like you weren't just fodder, that you were actual contenders for becoming amazing pro heroes. So you held back in our fights and let us get a few good shots to boost our confidence. Mashirao stated. While having faith that I could deal with getting the payload alone. Shoji added. Exactly. Sora confirmed. And because of that, the three of you all played important parts and did amazing. Ajiro smiled and Mizo calmly closed his eyes. Here's something else, Sora. Shoji remarked. Is that a good kind of something? Sora asked. The best kind of something. Mashirao answered. Sora smiled, let out a joyous laugh that got the other two to join in. When they got to the entrance, they waited for Toru to arrive. When she did, the four of them walked together over to the monetary room, all happy with what happened back there. Play KH Unchained OS Daybreak Town Field. The four of them got there and stood next to each other, waiting for whatever critique was coming their way. Well, out of all four of you, All Might started. The best of the bunch was young Hagakure. Sora was proud of her, and he noticed as the gloves shook for a second. She either perked up or was genuinely surprised. Either way, it was good for her. Who here would like to explain why, while we head to the exit? All Might requested. Of course, Momo raised her hand and began her explanation of Yagi's reasoning while they all made their way to the exit of the battle center. Sora got the basics. He let his guard down a few times, Mizo followed orders, but was reckless. Mashirao let his guard down a few times. Toru was acting like a villain would. Heroes won, but they weren't the best because of this and that, and the villains were not as good because of blah blah blah. Sora saw All Might looking at him, and he slyly pointed at his wrist, signaling to All Might that he was cutting it a bit close. Okay. All Might announced full marks all around. The only major injury was caused by young Midoriya. Excellent work. It's nice to hear some encouraging words after our homeroom class. Asui commented. Mr. Izawa was kind of a buzzkill. Everyone nodded to that. But Sora was rubbing his wrists, trying to tell Toshinori to go. Yagi was just starting to steam up a little bit. Silence. I'm happy to bring such staggering positivity to my class. All Might announced. That's all for now, folks. I should go and check on young Midoriya's progress. Now watch how Pro exits like he's got somewhere to be. He took off as fast as he could, leaving behind a big smoke trail and a small hole where he stood before. Sora stopped fidgeting with his wrists and sighed in relief. Okay you guys, that is a hero. Dinky commented. Oh, I'll never be able to run that fast. Mashirao remarked. Super awesome. Minoru praised. That was a bit too close. Yagi was straining to keep the form up during Sora's test, but that was about all he could do. Hopefully he gets to someplace where he can debuff himself safely, on time. Sora was about to follow Yagi to see Izuku, but realized that he had to go to the afternoon classes. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Lunch Song. The afternoon classes were just like the morning classes, geometry, science, government, all that stuff. Sora, though concerned about Izuku, was still able to pay attention in the courses and take notes. He took as much as he could so he can share the notes with Izuku. He also asked for 2 copies of any worksheets that the class was assigned to complete to give to his friend after school. When those were done with, school was out. Sora went over to the nurse's office and gave the papers he grabbed for Izuku to Recovery Girl and also apologized for just dropping him off here without explaining anything. After a short stern talk about giving people time to speak before running off, Sora then made his way to the development studio to meet the guy who gave him the note. He knocked on the door, waiting for a response, and then saw a guy that he thinks was called Power Loader answer the door. Silence. What you need? He asked. I'm here to see someone. Sora commented. This person gave me a note and told me to meet them here. Sora showed the note to the hero, and he let Kid in. He's over in the back of the room, past May. The pink-haired girl, he mentioned. Power Loader pointed out. You don't sound too thrilled to talk about this guy. Sora pointed out. He's another developer, very stingy about payment and his property. Not the best guy to work with. Power Loader explained. He said he was gonna leave a month ago, but something changed his mind, and now I'm stuck with him. Sora felt kinda bad for the guy. Hopefully he can handle whoever this developer is, especially since this mystery man wanted to see him in person. Sora looked around the room, trying to find any trace of another person, but he couldn't see anyone. Down here, Kupo. A voice called out, close to the ground. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Professor Izawa theme. Sora looked down and saw who it was. It was undeniable. The big round nose. The puffy antenna on his head. The white fur, the tiny ears. The small purple wings. It was the person that Sora could count on seeing everywhere he went. It still greatly shocked Sora though. Moogle Sora responded. In the flesh, Kupo. Moogle responded, flying up to Sora's eye level. I was wondering where our number 1 customer was, Kupo. He whispered that last part. How are you even here? Sora asked. We've set up shop everywhere for the past decade, Kupo. Moogle replied. Do you think that we don't have every place covered at this point, Kupo? Good point. Sora said. I'm still surprised that you wanted to see me though. I wanted to make sure that it was really you, Kupo. Moogle explained. I know how your stuff works, Kupo. It ain't really compatible with anyone else who works here, Kupo. So when I saw that you were applying to the school, I decided to stay and work with the staff as an extra licensed developer, Kupo. Wait, but how am I going to purchase your synthesis recipes and the materials? Sora questioned. Money isn't a currency accepted here, and if it was, I only have 1,000 in a pouch. Don't worry about that, Kupo. Moogle reassured. I get paid to help make things for the kids, so my fee is already covered, Kupo. Besides, you're the biggest spender out of all of our customers, Kupo. We've lost count of how many prize postcards you've sent us, and you also complete all the synthesis goals and use all the recipes during your past escapades with us, Kupo. I'll give you this free buy, Kupo. Sora was relieved at that explanation, but he still felt kinda spoiled if this was the case. Then again, if Moogle wants to do this, then he'll let the developer follow his heart. Lei Boku no Hero Academia Ostamunkase. You two seem to know each other. Power Loader interjected as he walked towards the two. Of course, Kupo. Moogle responded. He volunteered testing out our support items for the past year. But he stopped when he was getting ready to apply to UA. The pink-haired girl who was named May gasped and got behind Sora, looking a bit too excited. That means you'll be the perfect person to test out all my babies when I finish them. She remarked, already starting to feel Sora up, who was already uncomfortable with how quickly she moved in on him. Hey, I called dibs on him the moment I got his costume, Kupo. Moogle said, trying to get the girl away, but physically unable to move her, even when he was pulling a lock of her hair. Find your own volunteer, Kupo. Hey. Break it up. Power Loader called out, getting May off of Sora and Moggle off of May. Sorry about that, kid. These two are pretty competitive, in spite of meeting each other yesterday. That's fine. Sora replied. I just hope I didn't start a fight by accident. More like a rivalry. Power Loader replied as he walked with Sora to the door. Thanks for stopping by. Sora smiled and gave a thumbs up, letting the door close behind him. But as soon as the door closed, he heard some more banter. Dibs on his next request. May called out. Hat chance, Kupo. Moogle retorted. You can't call dibs on a person you two. Power Loader remarked. Lei Boku no Hero Academia asked bright and cheerfully. Sora decided to leave while he still could and hightailed it back to the classroom to see Izuku, making quite a bit more friends. Sora smiled and walked back in to listen to the praise of his friend, but ended up hearing something else funny on the sidelines. So noisy. Fumikage commented. Tokoyami. He'd announced, stop using that desk as a chair. Get off of it this instant. Dude, you need to chill. Jiro remarked, taking Tenya by surprise. Lei Boku no Hero Academia I'll become a hero. You're carrying a lot of tension, Jiro pointed out. No one understands. Iida said. I cannot condone actions that disrespect these desks. Not when great men and women, our upperclassmen, use them. Also noisy. Fumikage repeated. Talk about a diverse class. Sora muttered to himself. Denki and Ichako then walked in, and it seemed like Denki was trying to ask her out, but when she saw Izuku, she went over to talk to him. Nice try though. When she asked about why Midoriya wasn't healed all the way, he mentioned something about stamina before noticing that Kitsuki wasn't here. When she explained why, Izuku rushed out of the class and went to go find him. Sora was about to follow, but then got stopped by the crowd. Lei KH Union Cross asked dearly beloved. Hey, you're the guy who had that summon quirk, right? Hanta pointed out. Oh yeah. Sora confirmed. My name is Sora. Hanta Shiro. Shiro replied. Ijiro Kirishima. Ijiro added. Mina Shido Mina included. Yuga Aoyama. Yuga said, in an unsuccessfully flamboyant manner. Lenore Mineta. Mineta jumped up. Rakido Sato Rakido contributed. Sayu Asui, but you can call me Tsu. Sayu remarked. The way you used your quirk was amazing. Ashido praised. You were running circles around those two during your fights. You even gave them fair fights too. Kirishima added. Real manly stuff. You didn't even break a sweat either. Sato pointed out. What else can you do with your quirk? Mineta asked. Yeah. Come on, tell us. Mina pressed. Can you make other weapons and shoot out things like wind and rocks? How many things can you make at once? Hanta added. What's its weakness? Tsu asked. Hey. Sora spoke up. One at a time. I can't answer all your questions if I don't know what you're asking. This was definitely a much better day than yesterday. Sora was already making friends with about a third of the classroom in a day, and Izuku seemed to be as well. Sora was a bit worried that he'd have to watch Izuku a bit more closely, but with what happened today, Izuku might be fine with this friendship circle he had. Now Sora could focus on making friends here without worrying about Izuku being a social outcast. And here is a few of the things that have been changed. First off, Mizo and Team I actually get to have a proper battle, even though Sora pulled his punches. Secondly, Sora's quirk is revealed to the class by All Might. You can make your own commentary of his quirk introduction with a present Mick voice in your head. Thirdly, Moogle is present and will help Sora as his support item developer, basically giving Sora access to the synthesis shop. And also giving him a guy who can patch up his clothes without going overboard. Fourthly, Sora is going to start making his own friends, since Izuku has already gotten quite a few, now. And lastly, All Might cut it even closer than last time. Now that this is taken care of, I'm gonna take a nap. Until I decide to upload again. Chapter 9. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ostamon Kasei. The next day was pretty crowded at the entrance. Sora thought that yesterday was bad when he was asked so many questions, but now the press was here, basically demanding answers from the students walking in who was in All Might's class, meaning everyone in Wano was stuck outside. Trying to get in and hopefully not deal with too much questions being thrown at them. Sora was with Izuku, Achako, and Tenya when the press stormed over and started bombarding the group with questions. "Hey you." A female reporter approached Izuku. She then asked, "Can you tell us what it's like to work so closely with All Might?" Izuku was already starting to get nervous and couldn't find an excuse. Sora already had it covered. He placed his hands on his friend's shoulder and pulled Midoriya back, placing himself in the way of the reporter. He put on a polite smile and had one hand behind his back. He used that hand to signal the other three to just get inside while they still can. Izuku got the message and with some persuading to Tenya, got them to get inside while Sora distracted them. Katsuki also managed to get inside thanks to Sora, but the Keyblade wielder didn't notice him. "Sorry, he's just a little camera shy," Sora explained. "I'll answer some questions before I head in though." "Thank you very much, young man." The reporter didn't waste any time. "Are you one of the students who is in a class with All Might?" "Yes, I was in one of his classes yesterday," Sora replied. "What was it like being trained by the #1 hero?" she questioned. "It was great," Sora answered. "He made the class feel more lively and he was pretty good when it came to our safety when we had to use our quirks." "What kind of teacher is he?" she continued questioning. "I don't know," Sora responded. "It was his first day, so I don't think anybody knows yet." He nervously chuckled. "What's he like in person?" the reporter asked. Mr. Izawa then walked in front of Sora and got in the way of the reporter. "I think you've bothered my student enough," he said. "Go on, get out of here." Izawa walked with Sora while the reporter tried getting their attention. Sora was about to turn around, but Izawa advised against it as it would probably make them try to stay a bit longer. After that, Sora heard a very loud alarm as well as multiple sounds of metal doors. He turned around and then saw that the entire entrance was now blocked off. What just happened?" Sora asked. "One of them probably tried to get in and tripped off the security system," Izawa explained. "We have a security system," Sora replied. "We train heroes here," Izawa pointed out. "Some people don't like heroes and try to attack the schools that we have for them. So we made it that only students, police, people with a special pass, and faculty members can get in here unless we disable the security system ourselves." "That's good to know," Sora remarked. "That means you shouldn't lose your student ID," Izawa commented. "Go on and get to class." "Oh, right." Sora realized that the class was about to start and if he stayed at the same pace that Izawa was going, then he'd be late, so he took off as fast as he could to get to homeroom on time. Play Boku no Hero Academia Hostile Become a Hero. Sora managed to get there on time and was thanked by Izuku for getting him, Iida, and Uraraka out of there. When Izawa got to class, everyone was already in their seats. He didn't waste any time. "Decent work on yesterday's combat training, you guys," Izawa commented. "I saw the video feeds and went over each of your team's results." He then looked at Katsuki. "Bakugo. You're talented, so don't sulk like a child about your loss, okay?" Katsuki still looked sour about that and he responded, "Yeah, whatever." And Midoriya. Izawa continued, causing the boy to tense up. "I see the only way you won the match was by messing up your arm again. Work harder and don't give me the excuse that you don't have control over your quirk. That line's already getting old." Izuku was looking ashamed as Izawa continued. "You can't keep breaking your body while training here. But your quirk will be really useful if you can get a handle on it. So show a little urgency, huh?" Izuku perked up on that last bit of Izawa's explanation and was very determined to get his quirk under control. "Right," he responded. "Lastly, Sora," Izawa said. "Oh, crud. I noticed that you held back again," he started. "Normally I wouldn't tolerate that, but considering the reason why you did it, I'll let it slide for now." Sora didn't know whether to be relieved or to facepalm. It wasn't because Izawa saw him hold back. It was because Sora didn't tell the rest of the class at all. Because of that, everyone who didn't know was shocked because Sora not only was almost perfect in his combat training, but he held back on it and the class could only guess why. Just don't make a habit out of it. Aizawa remarked. Understood, sir. Sora replied. Let's get down to business. Aizawa spoke again. Our first task will decide your future. The entire class was tense. What was it this time? Another quirk test. A test of brains. Some sort of test of heart. Whatever it was, the class couldn't really be calm about it considering last time. You all need to pick a class representative. Aizawa explained. That exited the students a bit too much. Everybody started volunteering for the role. Play Boku no Hero Academia OST slapstick. Pick me guys. I want to be class rep. Ijiro called out. I'll take it. Denki spoke next. Yeah, you're gonna need me. Kyoka interjected. Someone with style should. Yuga started before being cancelled out by Mina. Over here, I'm totally the right pick. She shouted. Everyone was going for the role, except for Sora and Shoto. Sora did not want to deal with any more than he already had to when it involved school, so he wasn't interested in the position. But that did not stop the rest of the class from basically screaming at Mr. Aizawa to pick themselves over recommending someone else. Silence, everyone please. Tenya broke the commotion. The class representative's duty is to lead others. It's not something just anyone can do. You must first have the trust of every student in the classroom. Therefore, the most logical way to fill this position is democratically. We will hold an election to choose our leader. Everyone just thought about it as an excuse to vote for him, but Sora thought he had a good point. Is this really the best idea? Kaminari asked. We've only known each other for a few days. Sue pointed out. How do we know who we can trust? Besides, everyone will just vote for themselves. Kirishima added. Most people will. Iida remarked. But that means whoever does receive multiple votes must truly be the most suitable person for the job. He looked at Aizawa, who was getting in his sleeping bag, looking uninterested. It's the best way, right sir? Do what you want, just decide before my nap's over. Aizawa replied, laying on the floor. Thank you for your trust. Tenya responded. With that, everyone got a slip of paper and voted. Sora was a bit torn between two people. Tenya and Momo. Iida was very serious about the role, and he did seem like someone who could lead the class, but Yaoi Rozu basically was a natural-born leader in a sense, and she seemed to always be the best in the class. Sora didn't have much time and just decided to go with Momo. Play Boku no Hero Academia OST Professor Aizawa theme. The votes were tallied and there were many people who got one vote. However, Sora had 4 votes, while Momo had 3. The Keyblade wielder was actually surprised that he was considered by 4 other people, but he could guess who they were. Midoriya was undoubtedly one of them, due to the two knowing each other, and the other 3 had to be Masharao, due to the battle, and how Sora held back for him, Mizo, due to Sora placing his faith in the 6-armed student, and Toru, due to him being nice to her. And how he also pulled his punches against her. I didn't even vote for myself and I still got the most. Sora questioned. You're complaining about getting the job? Zero asked. No. I'm just surprised that I was considered. Sora explained. Tenya looked a bit ashamed that he didn't get any votes, but he also didn't argue with the system that he offered. So you voted for someone else, huh? Momo pointed out. But you knew it was best to vote for yourself, right? Rikito remarked. What were you trying to prove here, Iida? Sora stepped up to the front of the class, and Momo was to his left. Alright, the class rep is Sora. Aizawa announced. And our deputy is Yaoi Rozu. Sora hid his discomfort about receiving the job. He didn't really know how it worked, but he was gonna give it a try unless it proved too much for him. Then he'd give it to Momo, since she was his vote to begin with. I look forward to repping, I guess. Sora said. I suppose I can accept this. Momo replied. This might not be too bad. Asui commented. Yeah, I could definitely get behind Sora as the class rep. Kirishima added. They are the 2 best students when it came to the training and quirk test results. Denki pointed out. After the morning classes, Wana went to lunch. Play Boku no Hero Academia OST bright and cheerfully. It's always so crowded in here. Echako complained. That's because students in the support, management and hero courses all share the same cafeteria. Tenya explained. Sora, Midoriya, Uraraka and Iida were all eating together at the same table, as well as a few other students, but the 4 didn't know any of them, so they stuck to their little group. This rice is delicious. Echako praised as she continued eating the dish. Congratulations on getting the position back in class, Sora. Izuku stated. I had a feeling that you'd be the one to get it. Thanks, but I'm not really sure how to go about it. Sora replied. I'm not exactly sure that I'm even the right person for the job. Sure you are. Uraraka retorted. You'll be fine. Tenya added. Are you sure? Sora asked. What you showed during your quirk assessment test and combat training shows that you take action before anyone else, as well as see to it that your task is complete with the utmost efficiency. Iida explained. Even though you held back during your combat training, you still were almost perfect all around. Even though I voted for Midoriya, I still considered you while deciding the role. While Izuku was surprised that Tenya voted for him, Sora felt a little better about the situation. Thanks Iida. Sora replied. Funny thing is I actually considered voting for you back there as well. But I decided to give it to Momo because she seemed to be the safer choice. To be honest, that's completely understandable. Tenya commented. I don't hold anything against you Sora. Didn't you want to be the rep though? Achako pointed out. I mean you look the part cause of the glasses. Wanting a job and being suited to it are quite different things. Iida remarked. Observing the Iida family's hero agency has taught me that much. Agency? The three repeated. Hold on, what does your family do? Izuku asked. Izuku. Sora reminded his friend. He said hero agency. Correct. Tenya confirmed, realizing that he just put some extra attention on himself. You know, I've been wondering something about you. Achako said. Admitted Iida. You're filthy rich. But Tenya looked a bit nervous about the subject. I was afraid people would treat me differently if they knew about my family. That comment made Midoriya and Uraraka just want to know more, and Iida ended up budging. Play Boku no Hero Academia asked Hero A. You see, Tenya began. The Iidas have been pro-heroes for generations. It runs in our blood. What? Izuku and Achako said in unison. That's awesome. Are the two of you familiar with the turbo hero Ingenium? Iida asked. I know all about him. Midoriya nerded out. He's a super popular pro with 65 sidekicks working alongside him at his Tokyo Hero Agency. Izuku then paused for a second. Don't tell me. He's my elder brother. Tenya announced. Izuku and Achako were starting to fawn over their friend, and Iida was a little proud of his heritage. Ingenium is an unmatched commander who honors the hero code. Tenya continued. As the second oldest Iida son, I strive to be just like him. However, I think it might be a bit soon for me to be in a leadership role. The reasons I explained before about Sora, as well as Izuku having the insight to see what the judges were looking for in the practical exam, outside of combat. Reps need that sort of insight. Iida looked a bit confused at Izuku and Achako, and Sora noticed that the two were staring a bit at him, even though he wasn't talking about his family anymore. That's the first time I've seen you smile Tenya. Uraraka pointed out. You should do it more. Whoa, you're right. Sora remarked. What are you talking about? Iida said, looking slightly more confused. I smile all the time. Well, not around us. Sora remarked. Seriously? Tenya replied. This is the first time you've seen me smile. Hey, yeah, so about that practical exam Izuku started, but then an alarm went off, causing everyone to stop talking. Warning. Level 3 security breach. The intercom announced. All students please evacuate the building in an orderly fashion. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Runaway Battle. This started to cause panic as people were getting out of their seats and making a break for the closest exit. The four of them got up and attempted to leave the building, only to see the hallway full of students. The students were pushing and shoving each other to try and get out of the building, and it was making the situation worse. Some people were getting trampled, and others were being pressed against the walls. For a school that trains heroes that help people, this wasn't a very good presentation, as most people were just trying to save themselves. Ow, this is a total mob. Achako commented while she was getting squished next to Tenya. Everyone was quick to react. Tenya added. As I'd expect from UA students. Did you expect a lack of order too? Sora asked while trying to stay with the three of them. They're causing a huge panic. Izuku stated before getting shoved away from the group and forced into the crowd. Crud Sora called out. Midoriya. He ended up also getting separated from the group, getting his back pushed against the glass. Tenya ended up following and got his front side facing the glass. HNG. Iida, can you see anything? Sora asked. I can't turn around. Who's out there? I'm searching. Tenya responded. It's the press that was outside. Are you kidding me? Sora commented. I already answered their questions. Why are they still here? They probably wanted an interview with the staff about All Might being a teacher here. Iida explained. Well, now that we know that it isn't a villain, we need to find a way to tell the others. Sora pointed out. They're not gonna listen to us in this state of panic. We gotta find a way to get their attention. Iida instructed. Find a spot where everyone can see us and find a way to get us there. The two had to hurry as they saw their fellow classmates start to get shoved around and trampled in the crowd. If this didn't stop soon, people were going to get seriously injured over a false alarm. Sora ended up seeing the exit that people were trying to get to and pointed over to it. "We need to get up there," Sora remarked, pointing at the sign, letting Tenya see their objective. "Do you have any ideas on how to get there?" Iida questioned as he was starting to get pressed against the glass. "Grab onto me." Sora reached out his hand, extending it as far as he could. Tenya managed to get his arm out and he started reaching for Sora's hand. It was difficult because the crowd was working against them, but in short time they managed to reach each other. Sora then said, "Hold on." The two of them started to glow blue and then they both were now at the ceiling. Sora wasted no time and used his flow motion to move himself and Iida, who was holding onto him, over to the exit sign. Sora held onto it and managed to grab onto the pipe above the sign, letting Tenya dangle from the arm that he was being held with. Iida took over from here. "Listen up," Tenya announced. "Everything is okay." Everyone then stopped and looked over to where the two were. "It's just the media outside," Iida explained. "There's absolutely nothing to worry about. Everything's fine. We're UA students. We need to remain calm and prove that we're the best of the best." That announcement calmed everyone down, as well as the police showing up just seconds later to remove the reporters who caused the disturbance. When the crowd finally noticed that Sora and Tenya were still up there, waiting for the people to move so they wouldn't land on anyone, the students got out of the way, letting them get down. "So?" Sora started. "What were you saying about not being ready to be a leader?" Iida just realized that he did exactly what a leader would do in that situation, and he ended up being surprised. "I don't think you give yourself enough credit," Sora commented. "Now I think I regret not voting for you." "Ah," Tenya responded. "Don't say that. You're the one who came up with the idea to do that." "But you calmed down the crowd," Sora pointed out. "I just got you there." The bell for class ended up ringing and they had to go to class. Sora couldn't finish what he wanted to say, but he decided to do so in the classroom. When Class 1 was present, Sora and Momo went up to the front. "Alright class rep." Yayoi Rozu spoke. "Let's begin." "Right," Sora replied. "Before we begin, I need to say something." The class looked at their rep and Sora took a deep breath. He said he'd give the position a try, but with what happened earlier, he knew what to do. This wasn't his specialty, and he knew that, but he knew whose specialty it was. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Lunch song. "I'm evicting myself from the position of class rep and would like to request the Tenya to replace me," Sora announced, causing the entire class to be shocked and Aizawa to give a deadpan expression at the kid. "I'm not the kind of person who can deal with a position like this, and after what happened earlier today, Tenya has already proven himself to be far more capable than me at taking control of a situation and ensuring safety and order. Because of that, I genuinely believe that he should take my place as class rep." "Yeah, you know what, if Sora vouches for the guy, I'm fine with it." Ijiro agreed. "And Sora is right. He totally manned up and took charge, right?" "Yep." Denki added. "Oh, and did you see how he was hanging on the ceiling like a sloth? Funny, since he's the speedy guy here. This is a waste of time." Aizawa interjected, once again in his sleeping bag. "I don't care who the rep is, just hurry up." Sora stepped out of the center and gestured to Tenya to come up. Though Iida was a slight bit hesitant, he stood up and went to the center of the class. He also shook Sora's hand and said, "Thank you Sora," before presenting himself to the class. Sora then saw Momo look a bit disheartened. Sorry Momo." Sora apologized. "If it makes you feel any better, I voted for you the first time." "Noted." Momo dejectedly said, still looking a bit down because she had 3 more votes than him and one of them was from the former class rep. "You'll make an amazing deputy though," Sora said, trying to cheer her up. He then went to his seat and let the class begin. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Master Criminal. Somewhere outside the school campus, there was a figure standing on a rooftop, looking at the damage done to the metal doors in the front of the school. The walls were turned to dust from what this figure could see, but that wasn't what interested them. It was the 3 people that were standing in front of it, observing the damage. This figure could feel some things with the 3. Confusion. Worry. Irritation. It was pleasant. But it didn't last long. The figure couldn't stay forever, and they knew that. A black and purple mist-like void had opened next to the figure, and they stepped through it slowly, wanting to savor the moment, but just as soon as the figure stepped through it, the void closed. Vanished without a trace. In another part of town, this same void appeared, and the figure stepped through, watching from another rooftop, as something was happening below. There was something attacking this area, and it was causing the people around to be afraid, angry, unsure. The figure took a deep breath, as if to savor the moment, but it was interrupted by a man. The big bulky man, who came in and resolved the situation in an instant, causing everyone around him to instantly lose that fear and have it be replaced with joy, happiness, humor. It was sick to the figure. They didn't care about the event being resolved. Better to let it happen, watch the event spiral downhill into chaos and dread. It felt much better that way, but this figure didn't have the time to stand around. They were looking for something. The void appeared again and they entered it. Silence. Now that the hero class began, Aizawa spoke to the students. The day's training will be different. Aizawa commented. You'll have 3 instructors. Me, All Might, and another faculty member will be keeping tabs on you. Everyone was a bit surprised that 3 pro hero teachers were going to be focusing on one class. Hanta raised his hand. Sir, what kind of training is this? Shiro asked. Boku no Hero Academia asked you are reporting for duty. Aizawa then held up a card that read rescue on it before answering. Rescue. You'll be dealing with natural disasters, shipwrecks, stuff like that. The class once again got excited for their hero training, well, most of them were. Shoto and Momo were calm about it, and Kitsuki was annoyed with it. He clearly didn't care about rescue. Eyes, I'm not finished yet. Aizawa interrupted the class from their chatter. What you wear in this exercise is up to you. I know you're excited about costumes. But keep in mind that you haven't gotten used to them yet, and they might limit your abilities. The walls brought out the cases again. This special training is at an off-campus facility, so we'll be taking a bus to get there. Aizawa finished. That's all, start getting ready. The class got out of their chairs, grabbed their costumes, went to go change into them, and then meet up at the bus. Everyone was wearing their costumes, except for Izuku, who noted that it was destroyed from the training before. Sora then noticed Mineta staring again at Ichako. Momo also noticed this as well, so Sora let her deal with the small guy. It was getting annoying though, seeing this guy just look at a girl's features and nothing else. It made Sora question how he even got in here. He and the rest of the class then heard a whistle be blown. It was Tenya who blew it to get our attention. Gather round, Class 1A. He instructed. Using your student numbers, form 2 neat lines so we can load the bus efficiently. Iida then blew the whistle a few more times, basically telling everyone to get a move on and do it. While Sora did say that Tenya was a good choice for the job, he forgot about how the guy went about daily business. He's gonna have to get used to that. When they tried to do what Iida asked, the class realized that the bus wasn't like any normal bus. It had an open layout that practically ruined Tenya's idea, so people just sat where they wanted. Sora decided to give Izuku some space. Sure, they're friends, but Midoriya needed to get to know the people in his own world. After all, the Keyblade wielder was still trying to find a way out of this world, and when he leaves, he might not come back, so it was best that Izuku had other friends to rely on. He was close to the back, sitting with Momo and Ichako, and constantly looking in front of his seat because Mineta was sitting in the seat in front of the two and was becoming very annoying with his attempts to ogle at the girl next to Sora. He heard a few things, like how he, Shoto, and Kitsuki all had pro quirks, but that Bakugo wouldn't be considered a pro because of his attitude. Sora smirked a bit when Kitsuki basically proved their point with his attitude. This is such a disgusting conversation. Momo said under her hand. Yeah, but it's kinda fun listening to them fight. Ichako replied to Yaoyorozu. He'll shut up soon. Sora remarked, looking at Momo, who looked a bit uncomfortable. You okay? I'm just dumbstruck at how he acts. Yaoyorozu commented. You and me both. Sora said. Hey, we're here. As always stated. Stop messing around. Boku no Hero Academia asked My Hero Academia. The class got off the bus and entered the facility, and the other teacher was there. She was wearing a spacesuit that made her look like a marshmallow and had plugs where her fingers are. Hello everyone, I've been waiting for you. She said. Sora figured out from all of the other students gawking and Izuku giving a name drop that this was the space hero, 13. Weird hero name being a number. And why was it 13? Sora had enough of that number already. What is it with that number that makes it used so much? I can't wait to show you what's inside. 13 continued. This is gonna be awesome. 2/3 of the class said in unison. When they entered the building, there were multiple different zones that were already visible. Destroyed buildings, burnt up areas, a ship in water, mountains, a stormy area. This place was absolutely what Aizawa said it was. I created this training facility to prepare you to deal with different types of disasters. 13 explained. I call it the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, but you can call it USJ. Silence. The acronym was just like a movie studio to everyone except for Sora, but that wasn't the point. Hey, shouldn't All Might be here already? Aizawa asked. Let me guess, he booked an interview instead. Actually it's something else. 13 quietly replied, though Sora could still hear her. Apparently he did too much hero work on his way to school and he used up all his power. He's resting in the teacher's lounge. Good job Yagi. In both ways. Sora had a feeling that something like that would be the case. He was still glad that All Might tried to be the hero, but he overdid it and basically lost his time to teach Izuku how to even work his quirk. That man is the height of irresponsibility. Aizawa concluded quietly. Clock's ticking. We should get. Aizawa was interrupted when he saw Sora look almost shocked and soon after, summoned the Keyblade and got ready for a fight. Suddenly sparks were starting to make the lights flicker and the fountain in the middle started to turn off and on again for some reason. The two teachers looked to where Sora was and all they could see was a black and purplish void start to appear. Now that the tutorial for the domestic life is over, it's time for the first real level of this game. The attack on USJ will be drastically different, but not in the way that you might think. Things will be added, battles will be had, and a new threat will show theirself after the battle. The villains are now coming into the story. Hope you enjoy and until I decide to upload again. Hope you enjoy and until I decide to upload again. Hope you Chapter 10. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Enemy Strike. Thanks to Sora's reaction, Aizawa and 13 were already prepared for whatever comes out of that portal, and it was a good thing they were. Dozens of people of all sizes, shapes, and quirks were stepping through, but the most notable one was the boy in the center. The boy was slim, practically just skin and bones. He seemed to be in a slouch, yet no weight was holding the boy down, making his posture naturally look lax, as if he knows he isn't under threat. But the creepiest part about this boy was his accessories. Hands were on the front and back of his head, as well as around his arms and on his shoulders, and they were shamelessly shown, as if they were trophies from a hunt. Whoever this boy is, he wasn't here to play nice. Whoa, what is that thing? Kirishima asked. Has the training started already? I thought we were rescuing people. Izuku was about to step forward, but Sora, who was in the front of the other students, held his left arm out and stopped his friend in his tracks. The other students were wondering what Sora was so tensed up about, but then they got their answer. Stay back. Aizawa ordered, getting himself ready for a fight. This is real. Those are villains. The students were shocked, wondering how they even got here, as well as what their reason for being here was. Every single one of them were starting to quiver in a small amount of fear. They had no idea what to do right now. The only one who was ready for a fight was Sora, who had his kingdom key at the ready. The only real heroes I see are 13 and Eraserhead. A deep voice had spoken through the void. Perplexing. According to the schedule we retrieved from UA. All Might should be here as well. The void had brought in one more person through, before slowly morphing into a person, with bright yellow eyes, and the void itself being a body of some sort. This person was a walking portal. If the heroes wanted to get anything done, then that guy had to be taken down as fast as possible. So you scumbags used a press as a cover and sneaked onto campus. Aizawa deduced. Where is he? The boy with hands all over asked. I went through the trouble of bringing so many friends who are eager to meet him. They want All Might, the great symbol of peace. I can't believe he's not here. Maybe if I kill a few kids, he'll come out to play. I might start with that one in the front. He looked toward Sora. Aizawa activated his quirk and had his capture scarf at the ready, while 13 kept everyone, Sora included, behind her. The stakes were real, and the heroes were overwhelmingly outnumbered. Things looked very grim. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost threat incoming. Real villains? Hijiro questioned. No way. How could so many of them get into a UA Felicity this secure? Yeah. Momo agreed. 13, why aren't the alarms going off? Good question. 13 responded. I'm not sure. Is the entire campus under attack, or is this their only target? Shoto either way, if the alarm sensors aren't being triggered, then one of these villains must have a quirk that's masking their presence here. They carefully chose this isolated facility as an entry point at a time when a class was being taught. They're fools for trespassing here, but they thought this out. Whatever their plan, they must have a concrete objective in mind. But what is it? I heard the hand-covered guy say something about All Might. Sora pointed out. They probably came here to destroy the #1 hero while his guard was down. But he's not here right now, so they might try to call him over by taking us out. This made the students tense up even more. The fact that All Might wasn't here was bad enough, but the probability that they were going to be used as dead bait to draw him towards a trap just made the situation much worse. 13, get them out of here. And alert the main campus. Aizawa stepped in front of everyone. Actually, if they got the ability to block our sensors, then they might be jamming our regular communications too. Aizawa looked at Denki. Kaminari, try using your quirk to contact the school. Yes, sir. Denki started using his quirk on a radio strapped onto his ear. What are you gonna do? Midoriya asked. You can't fight them on your own. there's too many of them. Even if you can nullify their quirks, your fighting style is not suited for this. Your power works best in stealth and one-on-one fights. That's not gonna help with a group. You can't be a pro if you only have one trick. Eraserhead remarked before getting ready to jump. I'll leave it to you 13. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Runaway Battle. Eraserhead leapt forward, going right towards the danger. Some of the villains were getting ready to attack, positioning themselves to shoot their target, but the hero was staring right at them, negating their quirks with his own. He closed the distance and used his scarf to bound the three he grabbed and slam their heads together before throwing them to the side. The other villains were shocked at this man taking down 3 people at once, but the hero wasn't done. By the time the villains figured out who they were dealing with, Eraserhead was already taking down someone else. He couldn't erase someone's quirk if it was a part of their body, like an extra limb or a deformation because of the quirk, but he didn't need to, because he was more than able to handle the guy charging him. He punched the villain's face, launching the Avildoer into the air, before using his scarf to pull his target into another attacker, who the hero had kicked towards another 2, and slammed the one in the scarf into the group. Now, which one of you gutter punks is next? Eraserhead taunted. There he goes, trying to intimidate us. The hand-covered boy remarked. He is strong, and since he's hiding behind those goggles, you can't whose quirk he's erasing. He's making it hard for us to work together or rely on each other's powers. How annoying. The hero was on the attack, kicking another villain in the face, while simultaneously wrapping his scarf around another one's body, pulling the person over, and slamming his knee down on the guy's face. The worst thing about dealing with pros is when they live up to all their hype. The hand-covered man concluded. Suddenly Eraserhead's hair went down, and the void person had narrowed his eyes. Izuku was surprised to see Eraserhead in action, but was soon called over by Ida. Sora, however, had noticed the void man, started to flare up, and he saw where the villain was looking. Eyes. Sora called out. Watch out. It was too late, as the villain warped himself in front of the exit. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Villain Invasion theme. There is no escape for you. He said, making himself look twice as large before. It's a pleasure to meet you. We are the League of Villains. I know it's impolite, but we decided to invite ourselves into this haven of justice to say hello. And besides, isn't this a fitting place for All Might, the symbol of peace, to take his last breath? I believe he was supposed to be here today, and yet I see no sign of him. There must have been some sort of change in plans that we could not have foreseen. Well, in the end I suppose it doesn't matter. I still have a role to play. 13 was about to use her quirk, but Kitsuki, Ijiro, and Sora had all jumped towards him, each on the attack. Kirishima and Sora had swung towards the man, while Bakugo had sent an explosion out, making a huge blast. Did you think we were just gonna stand around and let you tear this place to shreds? Ijiro asked, with his guard up and the 3 of them ready to dish out second serving. Think again, you freak. Sora added. You live up to your school's reputation. The void man complimented before revealing himself in the smoke from the explosion. But you should be more careful, children. Otherwise someone might get hurt. Get out of the way right now, you 3. 13 ordered, her quirk at the ready for when the 3 follow her. I'll scatter you across this facility to meet my comrades and your deaths. The void man announced as he surrounded the group with his quirk and forced them through. Everyone except 13, Tenya, Achako, Mizo, Mina, Hanta, and Rakido got warped away. Silence. Sora got thrown right into the center of the plaza. He landed hard on his back and barely managed to see a hand attempting to grab him. Sora wasted no time and kicked the hand away before rolling backwards and using his arms to push himself in the air and land on his feet. He held his kingdom key forward and pointed it at his opponent. It was the boy with hands all over him. I see you're not afraid to get your own hands dirty. Sora commented. But I'd think you'd want to target the one who's beating your army to the ground. My friend Nomu can take care of Eraserhead. The villain remarked. Besides, how else am I gonna get All Might's attention if I don't dust a few of his children? As if on command, the big guy who stood next to the hand-covered boy started to walk over to Eraserhead, completely blank in expression. This big guy must be the one called Nomu. As Eraserhead was finishing up with a small fry, he attempted to go for the hand-covered boy, but was stopped by Nomu, who managed to grab the capture scarf and pull the hero towards him. He then used his massive hand and started pummeling Eraserhead to the ground. No. Sora yelled out. Mr. Ozawa. Play KH 1.5 Remix Ost Night of Fate. He almost didn't see a group of 7 villains come towards him. When one of them tried to tackle Sora, he jumped over and slammed his keyblade down on the attacker's neck, knocking the Avildoer out. 2 more jumped in and tried their luck with a pincer attack, but Sora had managed to get out of the way and make them run into each other. When the hero landed, he was grabbed by a big guy behind him, and the villain started to squeeze Sora in an attempt to crush the boy. Sora retaliated by headbutting the big guy, forcing him to let go and cover his face in pain. Sora slid under the big guy's back and then used his keyblade like a bat again, launching the big guy into the other two from earlier, dazing them. Sora was about to pursue his target, but another one came from Sora's left and then used blades from his body to attack the keyblade wielder. Sora parried any attack and waited for an opening. When he got one, he slipped in between the attack sent by the bladed villain and delivered a vicious upward slash at his opponent's jaw, knocking him out. Sora then noticed the last two coming towards him and tried something. He grabbed the villain he just knocked out and threw him at the last two. One of them got hit and was pushed down from the weight of the body thrown at her. The other one dodged the attack and jumped in the air. He tried to attack Sora, but the hero used his Flamotion to blitz over to the villain while he was still in the air and slammed the Kingdom Key on his head, forcing him to the girl that was just getting the bladed man off of her. She once again was slammed into the ground by a body, but this time, she had the wind knocked out of her and she couldn't get up from the attack. The three from earlier had just recovered and had eyes on Sora, but he once again used his Flamotion to zoom towards them. He used the speed he had and aimed himself accordingly to deliver a devastating drop kick to the big guy, winding him for a second, while Sora struck his keyblade on the other two's faces as one swipe, taking them out of the fight. Sora then focused on the last one standing and executed a 10-hit combo on the big guy, swinging as hard as he could without killing his opponent. Silence. Sora then looked over to where Eraserhead was and saw him broken on the floor. He was about to jump in, but then the Void Man appeared again next to the hand-covered boy. Tamura Shigaraki. The Void Man said. Kurogiri. The boy now called Tamura responded. Did you manage to kill 13? The rescue hero is out of commission, the Void Man called Kurogiri reported. But there were students I was unable to disperse, and one of them got outside of the facility. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost villain's theme. That was good news for Sora, and it seemed to have a very bad effect on Shigaraki's skin as he started to scratch his neck like he got a rash from hearing that. He scratched uncontrollably as he spoke. Kurogiri, you fool. If you weren't our warp gate, I'd tear apart every last atom in your body. Tamura then calmed down for a second. There's no way we can win if dozens of pros show up to stop us. It's game over, back to the title screen. And I was looking forward to finishing this today. Damn it. Let's go home. There were a few things going off in Sora's mind. First off, how did they think this was going to go? Every plan has its flaws and you need to be ready for that. Secondly, how are these guys planning on getting everyone out of here, or is Kurogiri gonna abandon everyone except Shigaraki and Nomu? Lastly but not really as important, did Tamura just use video game logic? Does everyone use that logic here? Oh, before we leave, let's make sure the symbol of peace is broken. Shigaraki ordered, turning his attention to Sora. Nomu, destroy the three in the water. Kurogiri, you and I are gonna take out the prodigy here. Make up for your mistake by helping me dust him. Let's wreck All Might's pride. Silence. As you wish. Kurogiri obliged, surrounding Sora and Tamura with his quirk and awaiting for Shigaraki to make a move. Suddenly though, a large boom was heard and in came All Might, who looked very angry. He was at the center of the plaza in almost an instant and had already disposed of every small fry villain that got in his way. Tamura, All Might just appeared and disposed of the group that was left standing. Kurogiri reported. Well, Tamura replied, sounding pleased with that news. It looks like our game is getting a continue. Shigaraki motioned Kurogiri to open a small portal and he did so. The hand-covered boy stuck his face out and only muffled voices could be heard. Play KH 1.5 Remix OS disappeared. Sora attempted to attack Tamura, but Kurogiri warped the hero right back over to where he was, forcing Sora to stay in place. When Shigaraki finished, he stuck his head back out and looked at the yellow lines that were most likely Kurogiri's eyes. I just ordered Nomu to forget about the kids and focus on annihilating All Might. Tamura said. When he's musher Nomu's down, let me know. Until then, back me up. As you command. Kurogiri replied, keeping an eye on Sora. Sora now had to deal with not only the stress of not being able to help his friends, but to fight against a guy who he doesn't know the quirk of yet, and another guy who could send him in any place that was advantageous to the two, but Sora didn't falter, he gripped the Kingdom Key. And got ready to fight. His objective, escape and help out his friends. As soon as Shigaraki moved, he went through a portal and was already about to grab Sora, but the Keyblade wielder leaned back and used the Kingdom Key to push Tamura back through the portal that he came from. Sora ran towards the villain, ready to swing, but a hand was right in front of his face. The hero dodged, but then another hand was in the direction he was dodging. He used his keyblade to change trajectory and get out of the way, and he then saw the first one pull back and disappear through a tiny void. Shigaraki was sticking his hands through tiny portals to attack. Sora watched for the next one, and when he saw the hand come out, he dodged and then grabbed the hand. He didn't let go and he pulled it out further until more of the arm came out. Sora got his keyblade up and was about to swing it down, but was caught by Tamura's other hand as it grabbed Sora's wrist. Sora then saw what he was dealing with as the accessory on his wrist was starting to turn to dust. The hero dropped the blade, let go of the other arm, caught the keyblade mid-air with his now free hand, and swung at the one around his wrist, forcing Shigaraki to let go before he could get to the skin. Sora looked down and saw another portal on the floor, right in front of his feet. The keyblade wielder jumped back, but was caught off guard by Tamura's entire body coming right through the portal and right into him. The hand-covered boy grabbed Sora's jacket. Sora had to act fast and he did, stabbing the kingdom key into the ground and holding onto the hilt as he flipped around and used the momentum to throw Shigaraki off of him before he could do any more damage. The jacket had ripped a bit but was otherwise okay. Sora dashed towards Tamura and thrusted his keyblade forward but suddenly felt a huge amount of force on his stomach. Kurogiri used his warp powers to make a mini portal in front of Tamura at the last possible second and redirect the attack to Sora. It worked as the hero was blown back from his own attack and recovering from it. At that time, Sora was weighing his options. Shigaraki was basically untouchable because of Kurogiri, but Sora can't dodge Tamura forever. There had to be a way to beat this. He just needed time to think. Unfortunately, he didn't have that luxury as a portal opened next to him and Tamura dived out, but Sora managed to roll out of the way. Suddenly, another one came next to him and he saw Tamura jump down into a portal of his own to then warp right next to Sora again. The hero once again dodged, and then it happened again and again until Shigaraki dived down a portal and wasn't seen. Sora kept his guard up and then after a few seconds, he saw a portal appear behind him, with Tamura blitzing towards the keyblade wielder, who once again dodged, but Shigaraki corrected his own trajectory and continued charging towards Sora, who now had to avoid the portals that were appearing in the directions he was heading because there was one that was always right next to Tamura. As he avoided the portals, Shigaraki was starting to catch up to his opponent thanks to the madman's speed and his prey focusing on dodging the portals. Tamura was gaining on Sora and was almost able to reach him, but was just out of reach. So he decided to go for one last lunge. The villain lunged but also noticed Sora lunge himself into a portal. Tamura had his hand stretched to the entrance of the portal on his side and was ready to counter Sora, who was coming through it as he did this. The hero had swung his keyblade toward Shigaraki's hand, and just as he was about to make contact, he executed the plan he made during this desperation move. Sora unsummoned the kingdom key when Tamura closed his hand in an attempt to grab the blade, and as he was going towards Tamura, resummoned it and struck the villain right in the right side of his ribs, dazing him as Sora finished getting through the portal just before it closed on him. Sora then used the small amount of time he had to look around the dome, spotting Kurogiri's eyes. He used full motion to speed his way to them and swipe, but he didn't hit anything. Sora kept trying, but everything just went through him. Sora tried going through Kurogiri's makeshift border, made from his body, to try and escape, but came out on the opposite end of the dome, making fleeing not an option. Sora activated his full motion one more time, getting ready to attack Kurogiri again, but was then grabbed by both of his arms by Tamura, who used two mini portals created by his partner to grab and hold Sora in place. The kingdom key fell to the ground and disappeared as Sora was held up with his arms stretched to each side. Shigaraki then started to laugh, seeing as he had gotten the jump on the hero, but then stopped when he noticed that Sora didn't feel any pain. He looked at where he grabbed and saw why. Sora's full motion saved him and was taking the decay instead. The blue aura around his body was starting to crack, but it was holding. Sora had very little time before the decay would get through, so he had to think fast. He pulled back with the strength he could muster and got his hands together and summoned the keyblade again. Even though Tamura was keeping his grip and pulling back, finally getting through the flow motion, he couldn't stop Sora, despite the decay starting to affect the skin on his wrists. The hero then aimed his keyblade, and it glowed orange. "Fire!" Sora called out. The fireball bursted out of the sword and was going right for Shigaraki, but a portal opened up in front of him and behind Sora. The fireball went through, but it ended up not only changing course to avoid the one that cast it, but then tracked back towards Tamura, who now realized that he had to block this. He let go of both of Sora's arms and brought his own through the portals. The villain timed it just right and stuck his hand out in front of the fireball. He managed to grab it and minimize the burn damage by turning the solid part of the fireball into dust before it exploded. Shigaraki growled and held onto the hand he used to block the attack as it involuntarily twitches from the pain of the fireball. He almost didn't have time to see Sora cast 3 more. He dodged one. Kurogiri portaled the other two. While Shigaraki used his other hand to stop a second fireball casted towards him, Sora went on the attack. He wasn't able to hit the villain until he heard a groan of pain from Kurogiri, causing Tamura to get distracted and allowing Sora to swing into Shigaraki's stomach, forcing the hand-covered kid to the ground a good distance from where Sora was. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Runaway Battle. As the villain was getting up, Sora saw Kurogiri get smaller and smaller, and he couldn't believe who was responsible for it. Kitsuki Bakugo grabbed the metal around Kurogiri's neck and pinned him down to the ground. Then, ice was formed around the lower half of Nomu, who was holding All Might and attempting to crush him, but lost its grip when the ice formed around it, letting Yagi get out of there. Sora looked to the side and saw Shoto was the culprit. It looks like Sora's guess was correct about you guys thinking you're tough enough to take down All Might. Todoroki commented. Just then, Ijiro jumped into the fray and got in between Sora and Tamura, slamming his fist into the ground, making Shigaraki dodge the attack. You okay, Sora? Kirishima asked, noticing that Sora didn't look 100%. Yeah. Sora replied, just a few scratches. The decay on Sora's wrists was very minimal, but still there, and his jacket as well as one of his wrist accessories was decayed and torn. Be careful. Sora informed. If that guy touches you, you start to turn to dust. Wait, seriously? Ijiro replied. Yes. Now keep your guard up. Sora instructed. Yes, I found your body that time, you smoky bastard. Kitsuki remarked to Kurogiri. The symbol of peace will not be defeated by delinquents like you. Shoto spoke up. As that wasn't enough, a big air blast came from close by and forced Shirogaki back even further. The person who did that was Izuku, who was wincing from the pain as he broke his finger to attack but had a look of determination on his face. Get away from my friend. Midoriya said, getting ready to send another flick in Tamura's direction. He was now with a group who was ready to take on Tamura while All Might deals with Nomu while it is frozen in place. Play Boku no Hero Academia Ost Vanguard Action Squad, Darkness. Off in the distance, unseen by anyone, another dark purple void appeared and out came a figure. It was sent here for a purpose, but it didn't look the least bit interested in said purpose. That was until they suddenly felt what was happening. It felt so good. The figure had taken a deep breath in and there was a tiny amount of black smoke flowing into them. They were feeling good. Keeping their distance and disposing of any villains that had noticed them in an instant to avoid being shown before they were sure it was time, they made their way to a vantage point that can safely view the center plaza. About 15 minutes ago, the figure had entered a bar. The place was empty, but they could feel some dark presence that was here. Just as they were about to leave, however, a voice was heard. Though the figure was trying to remain unseen, they waited and listened. The voice had a few things that seemed useful to the figure. The figure was looking to build up power, or at least, that's what it told the voice. The voice, however, had offered to help in exchange for one thing. As the figure wasn't in any rush, they decided to play with the voice's useless attempt at playing devil's advocate. The voice had simply requested to have the figure observe a boy named Tamura and to get him out of trouble, and through this small act of trust, the figure would be able to learn how to gain the power it seeked. Back in the present, the figure watched from the distance, biding their time and watching what the brat would do. The figure was fine with the situation, as there was plenty to see and hear elsewhere to cure them of the boredom of the hero saving the day. But as they were about to leave, they noticed someone in the middle of the group in the plaza. The boy with spiky brown hair. He looked like he was tired, nearly beaten in a fight. This greatly intrigued them. From the looks of things, this Tamura had managed to damage the boy, and this impressed the figure. They knew full well who the boy was, and the fact that this skinny brat managed to force him to call for help pleased the figure. Maybe this Shigaraki kid isn't as useless as I thought. And another chapter done. USJ is going to be 3 parts. The first part is this, where a few things have changed, and Sora makes himself a member of Shigaraki's kill list in the future. The second part will cover All Might versus Nomu and the teachers rescuing the students, as well as a few more differences. And the final part will be a completely new event that has Sora teaming up with 2 other students to fight against. I'll give you one hint. They're in the group that just saved Sora from Kurogiri. Hopefully people don't mind that Sora doesn't really win against Tamura and Kurogiri in their fight, and Kinda needed help. I didn't want Sora to be seen as op, and the figure wouldn't be interested in Tamura if Sora didn't get a bit banged up and needed help. Lastly, everyone has guessed wrong so far when it involves who it is, but you're welcome to keep trying. Until I decide to upload again. This is the end chapter of this part. Don't forget to like and sub for a warm glass of milk. Lazy Fanfics was here. Peace.